Hello everyone and welcome to the MERN Stack. In this video we'll create a WhatsApp status creator. It will be a clone of WhatsApp status, what you use regularly for posting status on WhatsApp. So what we can do here, we have these two pencil icons right here where we can create a text post, or also we can create an image post. Alright, in WhatsApp we can post text or image, so this is similar way. So here we don't have the concept of logging users or logging out. Here we need to just specify username, say John, and say the post text will be test post 1. You can select the background color for the post, say sky blue. Then you can see a new user being created with John, and here you have the post text test post 1. Now if you create another post with the same username, say John, and then you say test post 2 with background color, say yellow itself, and save it up, you can see that no new user is being created, but the post that we created is appended at the end. You can see now arrow buttons here to move from one post to another. You can see the test post 2 which we just created is appended at the end of the previous existing post. We can also create post with another username, say David post. Instead of yellow, let it be light green, and save it up. You can see new user being created if we did not have that username before. But if we have the username before itself, then the post will be appended at the end. So this will be the logic in the backend. We can also delete post, but let me show you the feature of image post. So here in image post, you need to give the username. I will say David. Here I want to append for this user. And in image, what I want is you need a link. So say flower images. Whenever you search for flower, let's say we have a rose right here, this flower right here. So just select the image that you want to post the status and let it load. And once it loads, right click on it and click copy image address. So and paste it here. And in image caption you can say beautiful flower and just save it up. So you can see since we saved in David, we have the arrows now. If we have only one post, arrows will not come. If we have more than one post, then arrows will come. And you can see a beautiful flower right here. So that's all. Also, the delete feature is that whenever you click the delete button on the current post, it will remove that post. Now if we have only one post, then it will remove the entire username like this. So we can delete this image, we can create image post. So all of this will include will require you to know the technologies like MongoDB, NodeJS, Mongoose, and Postman in the backend, and also in the front end you will not need to know the NPM, right? How to install packages, then React, Redux, all the state management, creating components, and connecting to backend, Axios. So all of this will integrate together to make this application work. So I'm very excited, and the code for this application will be attached as a link in the video description below. It's a Github link, so you can check the link out to find out what the code is all about or to compare it. So if any file is required to be downloaded, I will tell you as this application progresses in the video. So let's get started with this application, and I'll see you there. Also, to follow along with this video, you have to at least know all the basics of the MERN stack, like MongoDB, Mongoose, how to connect them together, how to install them, right? You should have the setup, or if you don't know how to use all this like front-end React, Redux, then you have to go to some other video and learn from them and then come back here, alright? So this video is for MERN stack beginners or those who know at least the basics of MERN stack, alright, to follow along. To get started with the project, first create a new folder, name it WhatsApp status, and now open up your favorite code editor. I recommend using Visual Studio Code because it has a lot of good features and benefits. Now import the folder to your code editor. Okay, we have imported successfully. Now we need to set up a new node project because our backend, which will include our APIs, which will build, and we have to connect to the database. All those things will be done using NodeJS, okay? So we have to set up a new node project. For that, we'll have to run npm init. Ensure that you have NodeJS installed, okay? Otherwise this command will not run. So hit enter and it will initialize everything properly, and it will create a file called package.json, which will include all the dependencies that we install and the details of our project, okay? Now we have to install a couple of packages. For our backend, we'll be using the MongoDB database, and to connect with that, we'll need a package called Mongoose, and also we'll need other packages like Express and NodeMon to help us develop this application. Okay, so let us install them. npm I, so Mongoose, Express, and I'll also install course to avoid issues when sending requests from the front end later. Okay, and NodeMon. So these 4 packages will install, and I'll continue once it finishes install. Okay, so we have installed all the packages successfully. If you need any packages in future, then you can install them later. So now close up the terminal, and now we'll set up the default project structure having controllers, models, okay, and app.js. Okay, so we'll spin up a hello world application first, and then we'll continue. Create an app.js file, and here we'll import our Express package, and then we'll set up our node project. Const express equals to require express. Do how you do in the usual way. App equals to express. And now we can set up routes like app.get slash. Whenever we run the slash route, we'll run a function with request and response, callback function, where we have to return a response, say rest.send hello WhatsApp status. Okay, and after that we have to listen the server. We should start the server, and we have to specify the port. Let me use a constant to define the port. Say port equals to 5000. Okay, then here listen port, and last you have to specify a callback function where I will log that server listening at port plus port. Okay, now when we run node app.js, we should see server listening at port 5000, and if we go to our browser and run localhost 5000, sorry, I ran 8000, we should see hello WhatsApp status. So if you got this, then congratulations that you have successfully run this node server, and now we can continue with our project like connecting to database and setting up our other folders like routes and controllers. Now we will set up 3 more folders in this project. The first one is models, then second one is controllers, and the last one is routes. So this is how a standard project is set up. Now for each of them we need to create one more file and set them. For controller we'll have post.controller.js, where our functions will live, which will fetch from database, or create new files, new post, or delete something. For all of them we'll use controllers. Then in model we'll have post.model.js, where we'll define our schema, okay, for the post, like what kind of properties it can have, like text, images. And for the routes we'll have post.routes.js, where we'll contain all the routes like /post and the delete route. All the routes, the endpoints, will be defined in this file. Okay, so now we have defined the structure of this project, and now we need to connect to the database. So in app.js, import mongoose, const mongoose equals to require mongoose, and we'll use this package to connect to the database. Now you should have set up locally, or you should have Atlas setup of database so that you can connect with this project. Now in this course I will not tell you how to set up a database, but instead I'll directly use, you should follow some other video in YouTube or some guide on how to connect database. Okay, so in this example, in this project, I will be using local database of MongoDB, whose URL is, I'll say URI equals to MongoDB :/localhost 27017. So this is the localhost URL for MongoDB database, and after this you need to specify the database name. The database name will be WhatsApp _status. Now to connect to the database with this URI, you must have a database server running, whether it's locally or whether it's on the cloud. Now if it's on the cloud, such as MongoDB Atlas, which is free, which you can try out for free, the URL will be different. It will depend on what cluster it is, okay? But if you're doing locally, it will depend on the operating system, whether you're running Windows or Linux, or whether you're running Mac. On Mac, the command is brew services start. Brew services start MongoDB community, and of course you have to install this MongoDB community package. Now it has started. Now I can use Mongo shell. I can run db commands. I can exit it. I can connect to this database server using different applications, such as in this application like Node.js application, Python application, etc. Now, on the application level, after the database server is up and running, you have to use the mongoose package to connect to the database. The function name is mongoose.connect. Okay, in connect you have to pass the URI. As you've seen, we have already defined the URL, where we have to first pass the local host address if it's local server, then the database name. Okay, now this function returns a promise where we can chain .then, and in .then we can say console log that database connected successfully. We can run .catch. If any error occurs, then .catch part will run, accept the error argument, and here you say error in connecting database, okay, comma error. Now if we run this application by stopping the server, and if we run node app.js, we should see that server listening at port 5000 and database connected successfully. Now if you have seen this message, then it's very good. You're ready to continue with the later part of this course. But if you have some errors, then I please suggest you to research more on Stack Overflow or Google it and find out what the error is, or watch some video guide on how to connect database on your operating system, okay, for MongoDB. Okay, I've closed up everything. Now in package.json, I will define the start and dev scripts. Start node app.js, so that it's more concise. The dev script will be nodemon app.js. As you remember, we have installed nodemon, Express, all of these were already solved. And now using these commands I can start the server. If your server is running, then close it and run npm run dev. Now our server will automatically refresh if you do any changes like saving the file. It will auto refresh. Now we can close out the server. The database is also connected successfully, and we are ready to define our first post model. Okay, and this is the only model that we'll be requiring in this course. Okay, so now we are ready to define our post model. Okay, so in this application we will have posts. A user can create posts, WhatsApp status posts, which is what I mean, and a post can have text or images like that. Okay, and what is a model? A model is just an interface, okay, with which you can perform database operations easily, like finding all the data, selecting a particular type of data, deleting a particular data, updating some data related to the database collection. So all of this can be done via a model. Okay, so to define a model in Mongoose, which is an interface to connect to MongoDB database, so first you have to import mongoose equals to require mongoose, and then we have to get the schema. Let me store the schema, schema schema, it's mongoose.schema, and now we can use this variable to create a new definition. So in our case it's post model, so I'll say for the model the schema will be post schema, new schema, and here we will define all our properties. Okay, so first of all, our property is type. We want our post to be either text or image, so it can be one of these two types. So its type will be string. So this is the data type. Don't confuse yourself. Just because the property names are same, the property name is type and its data type is a string, and we'll also specify enum so that it takes one out of fixed defined values. So first will be text or image. It can only be either text or image and not any other value. Okay, and we'll also specify required attribute as true. So this is our schema. Now we have only the type property. We need some more properties, of course. The second one is username, with which we'll determine which user has uploaded the post. Okay, username will be string, but we don't just want to say its data type. We want to specify more properties, more settings. So we'll use the object notation for defining the property. So type is string, and we don't need enum, we need required true. Username is required. Then next we'll have text. So what text the user is posting, of course, how in WhatsApp you post the text. So it will also be type string. It's not necessarily required because if the type is image, then we don't need the text. Then it will have one more property to say background color. So if you want to put a custom background color to the text that we want to post, like red color background for the text, or that customization option we'll be providing to the user. So this will also be type string, and we want to specify a default value. So default value will be light green, I say, let it be light green. Then we'll have image URL. In this application, we'll not allow the user to upload images because it will get more complex and the video will get longer. So for simplicity, I'm just keeping image URL. Okay, so in image URL, we'll be putting the image link, and this will be used to show up in the front end. So its type will also be a string, and it's not necessarily required. And then at last, we need image caption. So if the type is an image, then image URL and image caption will be provided, okay, so that we can properly store the data and properly display the data. Okay, if the type is text, we'll need background color and text. Now with this, our post schema is defined, and we need one more thing. We need timestamps. Suppose we want to show the user when it was posted or when it was updated, etc. We can show timestamps, and even if we don't use now, it may be a useful value later to determine when the post was created, of course, like 3 hours ago or 2 hours ago it was posted. So we have to say timestamps true. With this, Mongoose will automatically created at and updated at fields for us. And if you notice, you'll see that I have not specified ID attribute because Mongoose automatically defines an ID column for us, an ID field for us. Now with this schema, we have to define a new model. Okay, this is not enough. We have to define a new model. Also, the convention that I'll be following is to define models with the capital letter, the first letter as a capital. So post equals to, I will say mongoose.model. This is the function for defining a new model. Here to say the name of the model, which the Mongoose will use internally, and then the next attribute, then the next value will be post schema. Okay, the next argument is post schema. You can specify it. Now we have the post model, and if it doesn't exist, Mongoose will automatically create it for us. And now we just have to export this. Exports module.exports equals to post. So this is how you export in Node.js. Now this is our model. Okay, with this we'll interact with the post. Okay, post collection. And now this is ready to be used in controllers, and routes will connect to controllers, yeah. And from controllers we'll call the models to perform all different kinds of operations. Now let us define some controllers in the post controller. So controllers are just functions which handle the incoming request and returns a response, okay? And these functions also connect models and the routes together. So in this controller we'll need the post model. So first let me import it. Post equals require dot slash go outside once and model slash post model. Now we will define 4 controller functions. First one is for creating post equals to react_res, and the next one, let me just copy them up. Create post. Second one is for getting all the posts, get all posts. The third one is to get all users. Okay, so because we have to display a list of users in our dashboard. And then the last one is delete post. Okay, it's for deleting a single post. We won't be deleting multiple posts, and also we are not providing the option for updating posts. If you want to implement that, it's your option. Okay, so now we need to connect this controller in the routes folder. So to create routes, we'll first import express equals to require express, and const router equals to express.router. This is very much similar if you compare with app.js with this one, express require express, and this express, since you're calling it here, instead of calling express, you're calling express.router here, okay? And just like doing app.get, we will be doing here router.get, router.post, etc. So this helps us to modularize the code for routing, okay? Instead of putting all of the routes, app.get, app.post, all of them here, okay? We'll remove this later. So now let's define our routes. Route.get/users. Whenever we want to get /users, we'll use the controller. So first, also let me import the controller. Const post controller equals to require /controller/post controller. And here you will say post controller get all users. In this way, copy this 3 more times, and next one is post which will return all the posts for a particular username, so colon username. So this is a parameter which will be passing in the route. It will be dynamic parameter. We'll pass the username, and for that username all the posts will be returned. We'll say get all posts, not get all users. And then the next one will be post, but will be the type is post, okay? The HTTP verb is post, and the URL name is /post. So whenever in this route we do a post request, we will send the data for the post, like type is text or what kind of text to upload, okay? So for this it will be create post controller, and then the last one is for deleting. The HTTP method will be delete, and here will be post /:id. Okay, let me put the specific URLs above and this dynamic routes below. So this is get route, getting all the posts. This is delete route. So this is the post ID, and now lastly we have to connect it, which is post controller dot delete post. So with this we have connected our router, and we need to finally export this router, which is module .exports, so that we can use it in app.js router. So now we have defined our router. We just need to import it in our app.js and then use it. Alright, we have defined our router and we have exported it. Now we need to import in app.js and connect this router with our application. So I'll say const post router. I'm telling it post router because in future you may have some other routers like user router, etc. like that, okay? So require ./routes/posted routes. Now we need to use it, so app.use as a middleware, say post router, okay? Now remove this. We will also need some more middlewares, okay? App.use helps us to apply a middleware. We'll use course, which we installed in the beginning of this application. This one, course package. So this application we have installed it, and course helps us to send requests even if it is not from the same URL. And then at last we have to use express.json. With express.json, it will help us to accept the JSON payload, okay? Whenever we send the post request, we will also need to send the data, and that data will send it in JSON form, and without express.json we won't be able to parse the data. So now go to post router, post controller. So now when we hit the URL /users, as you can see from post routes /users, this part will run, get users will run. So here we can return a response.json, and also I'll put the status before it. Status say 200, response JSON, and I'll say message get all users, okay? Now how do we run this route, right? How do we run this route? We can either go to our browser, say Chrome, let me open up, and here you can hit localhost 5000, and you can say /users. Then alright, our server may not be running. Wait a minute, it's crashed. App.use course. Oh, we have not imported this package, so first we have to import this package, of course, before calling it. So const course equals to require course. So we have imported it, and now yes, database connected successfully. Now if we run /users, we see message get all users, right? But how will you send post request? Example, you can only send GET requests to browsers, so that's not possible. So because of that, we have to use an API testing software which is called Postman. So I'm closing up this browser, so you have to use Postman. So this one, it's a tool which helps us to do API testing. So download it from the internet, search for Postman API testing, and here we can create request URLs, send post requests, and different types of requests, okay? So let us make the routes in Postman. So let's get started in Postman now. Postman is an API testing tool with which you can send various kind of requests like get, post, put, and delete, and much more. And also we can group up the routes into collections, we can save them. So it is a complete tool with which you can test our endpoint and to ensure whether it's working correctly or not. So first open up your Postman window, and then if you haven't created a workspace, create a new workspace. So in a workspace we can have various collections, and a collection is just a group of routes, okay? They're grouped together. For example, for one project I can have one collection. So here create a new collection and then rename it to WhatsApp status. Now we have this collection. Now inside this collection we can add routes. So you can right click and click add request. Alright, so this is a get request. Now we have different kinds of methods. As you can see here, we can do post, patch, put, delete, which are most common, of course. So now here we'll type the URL. First of all, let me change the name, say get all users. Now for this, the route will be http://localhost 5000 users, where our server is running in this localhost 5000 port. And if I hit enter and send a request, now in the body you will see that message get all users, which is the response which we return, is working now. In this way we have 4 other routes for getting all the posts and creating a post and deleting a post. So let us create 4 other routes in the same way by right clicking add request. And also this request we need to save by hitting Ctrl S. Now you can close this. So this new request, let's create 2 more. Now go to this second request. Here rename it to get all posts. Alright, this will also be a get request. You don't have to change this one, but here we want to copy this URL and then paste it here. And now this will be /posts. Okay, now you can save this. We have not implemented this route, so this will not work. Let me close them up. Now the third one will be create a post. So change this method to post and then here paste the URL, but here instead of /users it will be /posts. Okay, and then yeah, this is it. Save it in get all posts. Yeah, it was get. Now lastly we have a delete request. Click this, this will be delete. Paste the URL as before, and here in /post we have to also specify the ID of the post. So here we can later specify the ID. Now we have defined all our routes in Postman, and now if you compare this with the application, in our application posted routes file, you will see that router get /post/username. This username parameter is necessary, but we forgot to give that. So let us go back to Postman and to the route get all posts. Here we have to specify /username. So here we are taking the username parameter, and here we'll specify whatever username we want the post for, right? So now all the routes are matching, I guess. Later if we have some issue, then we will fix it. Now we are ready to write our controllers for each of the respective routes. So let's go to our controller file and start implementing all those functions. So go to your post controller and go to the line for create post to this controller, and in this controller we'll implement the creation of a single status post. Okay, so first we have to destructure the request body, and for that we'll do const this destructuring syntax equals to rec.body. Now rec.body contains the data, the post data, incoming post data, which is sent with the request. Okay, now if you go to app.js, you'll find that there is a line called app.use express.json. This parses the request body and puts it in rec.body property so that we can destructure all the required properties. Now if you go to post.model, you will see that we have defined all the properties in a clean and clear way. So we can see what are the properties that are required, which is type and username. Then we have other 4 properties. Depending on text or image, we will use them. Okay, so first of all, let's destructure type, username. So these 2 are must and are required. Then we have other 4 properties. Let us also destructure them. So we have text, then background color, then we have image URL and image caption, if the type of the post is image. Okay, so here we complete our destructuring, and now we have to put conditions with the type and username is present or not. So let's write the condition: if not type or not username, then we will return a response with status, which is 400. It indicates that there is some error, and JSON will put a message that type or username is required. Now next we'll determine whether the post type is image or text. So we'll write if type is equal to text. If type equals to text, then the post type is text. So if you see in the post schema, you will find that we have added enum where the type can be either text or image, but not any other value, right? So if type is text, the post type is text, we'll put other conditions for image. Else if the type is image, then we'll handle the condition for image. Else we'll return an error, return res.status. We have to always return a response for every request. So status is 400.json, then message will be that type must be either text or image, right? So that's a simple message we can log to give more information to the user. Now we want to store the post. Example, if the type is text, we want to just use the properties text and background color, or if the type is image, we want to store the URL of the image and the caption. So let me define a post variable so that I can store them. Let post, then post equals to, it'll be text and background color. I'm using ES6 syntax, so text property name will be text and the value will be of this text variable, right? But if it is image, then we'll do post equals to image URL, this one right here, and image caption. So this is how we define our post. If type is text, we'll have these properties, if image this, okay? And then later after these lines, we will create our post here using our post model, okay? So here we have specified the properties for text and image types, but here in post variable, we also need two more required properties, which is type and username. So first, we have to specify type and username, and then we can reuse them by spreading them out in this post variable with 3 dots, post. So here all the post properties like type and username, which we have defined as default, will be included. So we need the same in this image. So now after having specified the required properties, we will have to use the post model to create a post, this one. So here we'll say, after this, const created post equals to post.create, and here we'll just pass this post object which we created here and added all the properties, all the required properties. And now we have one problem, that this post function here, .create, it is a promise. So after you run this, we will not immediately get the result, so we'll have to await the result. We'll have to use the async await, the async await syntax. So this should be async. We can also use .then, but here I'm gonna use async await. So I hope you know this, or if you don't know, then I recommend you to check out how to use async await in JavaScript. So await here. So now we get the created post. Now we'll just return this. We won't do any error handling because I don't want to increase the length of this video. So I'll just return response.status. Now the status will be 200. Since everything has been successfully done, there is no more errors. We have already handled a few errors above, like if username is not present or type, or if the type is not valid, etc. You can do more error handling, whether post is created or not, etc. Now the message will be post created successfully. It may be used in the front end for toast or alerts. And now we will also want to return the created post. I'll say result. In result, I will just put this created post variable right here. So with this should work correctly. Let's go to Postman and see whether it's working or not. So now in Postman, close up everything, right click, close all tabs, and now we'll go to post, this one. We forgot to rename this request, so we'll say create a post. Make sure you give meaningful names so that it makes sense whenever you are working later or when you come back later. Alright, so here we delete a post like that. So in create a post, here we have the post request. Now we have to send the data for creating the post. So we have to go to body of the request, and now we'll select raw, and in raw we have to select JSON, because from the front end we'll be doing just the same. We'll be sending the JSON body in the payload. So here we will have text, and I hope you know the JSON syntax. You need to use double quotation marks in the property name as well as in the value names, unless if it is number in the value. So not text, sorry, it will be type. Type, we want it to be text, and then here for text we also need to specify what text we want to post. Say hello world, and then next we can optionally specify background color, or we can leave it. If you leave it, it will be taking the default value. If you go to post model, you see that there is a default value for background color, which is light green. So in post controller, even if you specify that we need background color, and if it is undefined, it should automatically take the default one. So let's try posting this. So after you type out the request and this URL is already correct, hit the send button. Then there should be response down here. If it's not appearing, scroll up. Type or username is required and absolutely correct. We have to specify which username this post belongs to. So our error handling is working fine. So username, I want to say it'll be John. And now when I save it, we find that post created successfully, and this is the result. We have created it, updated, add. These are appearing because we added timestamps in our model, and then we have Background color light green, which is correct as expected because we did not pass the background color. This is the text, this is the username, okay? So we won't maintain a separate model for users, so we will just specify username. Now we'll try with creating an image type. So here type will be image and username, let it be John itself, okay? And here we won't have text because this property won't be used in image type, so we have to specify image URL. Say image URL https:/dummy.com/myimage.png. This is just a demo URL, and here we'll have image caption. So let this be my image right here, and when I send it, this should also create successfully. And yes, image URL and image caption, but this time we don't have text, as these are optional properties, but type and username are always used. So if you're a bit confused how we have sent this body, so this is the payload right here. In every post request we have to send some data for the server since we are uploading content. So come to body, then in raw you select JSON right here, and then you can specify the JSON data, just how we'll also be doing the same in frontend. So now to verify whether this post is created or not, we have to get all the posts, okay, for a particular username, say John. Now this route we haven't implemented yet, and also save this post route. Now let us go and implement getAllPost, okay? So open up the post controller.js file, and we will implement the getAllPost here. So before we implement, let's check the route. In line number 7, you will see that it's /post/:username. So this is called the path parameter, and we can get it using rect.params. So let us get the username for whom we want to fetch the post for. So const username is equal to rect.params.username. So now we have got the username. Now we need to fetch all the posts belonging to this username. So we'll say const post equals to await. We'll use await here because it returns this post model. Any operation like fetching, deleting returns a promise. So we'll say post dot find all the posts belonging to the username. So we'll pass the username here in the object, and this value will resolve itself. Now since we are using await, we have to use async here, since this is async await syntax. Now here we get all the posts, just we need to return the response. So I can copy up this one, so paste it here, return rest status 200, okay. We don't need the message here. In result we want to return all the posts. So let's see the result in the Postman, what we get. So if I say /post/username, now in Postman, here you can define the path parameter. Here you can see username. Here if I write John, then you can see that I get all these posts right here. So in Postman, go to getAllPost tab, and here you can see that we have defined the path using a colon sign at the end. So this is a path parameter here. So here we can define the path variables by typing John. So username will be John, and let's send a request. Now we'll get all the posts by John. Alright, so if we try to put another username, say David, and then send a request, we will find that it returns an empty result because there is no post related to the username David, so it returns an empty result. Now let me put back to John, and let's send again. We'll see that we have the results back as before, and now we have to implement the delete route, and we see that it takes an ID parameter. Now if we check every post, we see that each of the posts has an underscore ID property, so we can use this ID to find the post that we want to delete, and then we will run the command for that. So come back to your code editor, and first let us go to post.routes, and here we see that the route takes ID parameter. So the parameter name is ID. This is the path parameter, so we can take it by saying const post ID equals to rect.params.id. So this is our post ID, and also let me make it async because all operations like delete, fetch, and update are asynchronous through the post model. So I will also return the deleted post. That's why I need to store it. So I'll say deleted post equals to await post dot, and there is one method called find by ID and delete, which takes an ID parameter to delete, and also it will return the post before deleting it, okay? So now the post to be deleted will be stored in delete post, and then after this line the post will be deleted, and also we'll have this data, the deleted post, so that we can return it in the response. So let me copy the response status. I also return let me just return 200 status. Some people like to return it 204, like no content, but in my case I want to return the deleted post, so I'll say result equals to deleted post. And with this it should work. So let us go to Postman and to our delete a post, and now we will need the ID here in this path parameter, path variables. Now let us get all posts again and copy one of the IDs right here, this one, and then paste it. Let us first count how many posts we have. 1, 2, 3. We have 3 number of posts. And now if we run delete post routes and send a request, we see that the deleted post data has been returned. And let us confirm here by going back again to get all results. And we see that we have only 2 posts now, so it's deleted successfully. Let us delete all of them. The second one, just copy and paste it. Send request, this deleted. And if we send request again, we have only 1 now. Let us send 1 more request, and then if we paste it right here, it's returning the result. So I hope it's successfully deleted. And now for all the posts related to John, it has been deleted. Okay, so it will be better if we also return a message right here, like post deleted successfully. So I'll say message post deleted successfully, and now just put a comma. Now we have successfully implemented delete post. Next is our turn to implement the last one, which is get all users. So let us go to Postman first and see what get all users is returning. So if I send a request, I'll see that it's returning a static message saying get all users. Now here I need to return all the usernames right here. So first what I'll do, I'll first make it async so that I can use await syntax here. And now I will say const users equals to, and now the thing is that we have not implemented a separate user model. What we have done is we have just a post model with username. Now there will be multiple posts and there can be duplicate usernames like John, because John can have multiple posts, right? A username can have 2, 3 posts, and in that post there will be multiple usernames. What we want is we want to extract only the unique usernames and return it, so that we can show it in the front end later. So first I will just return all the usernames that are possible. So I'll say post.find, await, post.find. Let me just find everything, and let me just say select username :1. So it should return only the username properties, and here instead of message I will say result equals to users. Now if we go back to Postman, we should see that it's an empty result for now because we have deleted all the posts using this delete request. Let me save this, delete, get all posts. Let me close them up, and now we have to create few posts for testing. So we have already 1 post by John before saved. So let me send a request. If you don't have this request body, then type it out and send a request. So we have a post now. If we see get all users, we should see username John. We are seeing only the username property because if you go to VS Code, you will find that we have selected only the username. Okay, using .select we can return only the properties that we want. Now if you create another post with the same username, if we resend the request, we will find that it's returning the duplicate name. We have 2 Johns right here. Now if we change the username to say David, VID, and send a request, the post will be created with David and without any problem. But in users, all the users right now, even if there are any other duplicates of David, all those will be also returned. So what we want is we want to return only the unique usernames. Example, if there are 2, 3 Johns right here, we want only one of them to return. Okay, so to do that we can simply say dot distinct just by running this command, and we have to say here which property, which field do you want to make distinct. The field that we want distinct is username, and now save it, and now go back to your Postman and send a request for getting all the users. We see that it's an array right here with David and John. Now I wanted to clear out last thing in this backend part is that here on get all users is returning an array of strings and not an array of Mongo's documents, right? MongoDB documents. So because this data is being extracted from multiple documents, it's extracted from multiple documents where we have the same username called John, but it cannot determine which of the data to return the additional properties, say created at, updated at, right? So if we go to get all posts and say we want to get all posts for the username called John, and we see that there are 2 posts where username is same here. So you can see it's John. Okay, there are 3 of them. I created additional one. So there are 3 of them, and here the username is same here, but the other properties are different. Now it's extracting the same username from these 3 documents, so it cannot know which one of the created at or other properties that you require. So what we can do is we can programmatically extract the data. Example, we want the first document and we want to show the created and updated at properties for the first document of this username. So if we want that, we have to do that programmatically, but for our purpose this is not necessary and it is enough. So this was what I wanted to clear it out. And now if you get all posts for John, we get this. If you change the name to David, we'll get 1 post since we created just 1 single post for it. So this is how, and still we are getting unique usernames right here. But if you want to delete something, we can delete it just by passing the ID here. So now everything will be controlled from the front end, and our backend is ready to be implemented to our front end React application. So with this, our backend is completed, and I want to do a quick recap on what we have done so far. So we have created app.js, this file, the server file, and we connected to our MongoDB database using a MongoDB URI. Now the URI can be either on the cloud using MongoDB Atlas, or it can be locally hosted server. So what you need to do is you need to check how to run the database locally, and depending on the operating system it will be different. We are also listening to the ports, and we have installed few packages. Example, Cores, Express, Mongoose, and NodeMon to help us develop this backend API routes. And what we have done is we have created a structure of folders. One is for controller, model, and one is for routes. Okay, so it's separated into 3 parts. So controller hosts all the functions and the logic for the API, and the model is the database, right? We have the schema right here. We define all the types and properties which are required, and we interact all of those through the database using this post model. Next, we have the routes, which connects the controllers and this API endpoints, right? Here we define the endpoints. Here the endpoints have these parameters like username, ID, route parameters that we can get using reg.params. And here we imported the controller and this. Then we have exported the router here. And the exported router can be imported in our app.js and be used as a middleware right here. Also, additionally, we have to use 2 more middlewares. One is Cores, so that we can send requests from the front end without any issues and problems. Next, we have express.json. This one is also a middleware which allows us to use reg.body right here, which parses the incoming request, post request data. Like if we go to create a post, here we have received the data like text, username, background color in reg.body. So here we have added some conditions to create this post, and in delete post we just get the ID and use few controller this functions defined in the model. And finally we have used async await here in all of the controller files, because this operation like deleting, updating is asynchronous, and we have to await it because it returns a promise, right? And also in our post model, the data types, the properties are this username, text. Now here username and text is compulsory, it's mandatory and it's required, and type can be either text or image. If the type is text, then we need these 2 properties. This background color is optional for text property, and it takes light green. And for images, we are just taking image URL. We are not implementing any image upload, so that it's simpler and we can get faster and develop it faster. So that's it. So with this, we have concluded our backend, and now we are ready to implement to our front end. So we have to do setup now for our React and Redux application. Then after defining all the routes, we have used the Postman tool for defining 4 routes here. In Postman, we have to create a workspace first. If you already have a workspace, then we can group up the routes for testing inside a collection, right? Here we created a collection called WhatsApp status, and here we added a request. We can add get requests. We can send different types of requests here. Post, put, patch. So this to our get request for getting username. So total for 4 routes, we have 4 requests. So this one is post route here. In post, we have to send a data in body tab. Okay. Then we have to select raw, then JSON. And in JSON, we just need to pass the data that we want to send for this post request. In delete, we just need to post the ID. Here in ID, we need to put :ID so that we can input the variable here. So this is how we can use Postman for testing the routes, to see the responses, console logs, like that. So now we have completed our backend and we have got a solid structure for our front end. We have separated everything properly. Now we are ready to create a front end folder here and set up our React and Redux project. So I will see you there. Now to create our front end, we'll be using React, Redux, and some of the other libraries for the front end. So for that, we have to set up our React project, and for that, we have a tool called Create React App from the official Facebook team itself. So we'll use this tool to install our project, to set up our project folder for the front end. So the command is npx. It is not npm, it is npx. Then create react-app. Then the name of the folder, name it front end, and hit enter. Now this will take a couple of minutes, okay, depending on your internet speed. So I'll continue once it finishes installing. After installing all the packages, now you should have a front-end folder where all the React libraries and packages that are required will be set up. And now here we'll start coding our front end. Now before that, I have already written the CSS style rules so that we don't waste any time in writing CSS. So from GitHub, you get the file. It is known as main.css. I'm just pasting it right here. So this file I'll put in the GitHub link below in the video description. So you check it out and download it. This main.scss file is a SCSS file and it's not a normal CSS file. So for that, we have to install a CSS preprocessor, which is node.js. So first navigate to the front-end folder, so the front-end, and then say npm I node-js. So what this will do is that it will allow us to run this kind of SCSS files in our project, and then it will compile down to normal CSS, okay? So SCSS provides us few abilities, and this style sheet I have written in that. So later, if you require to write any SCSS file, so you can search in the web what is this all about, and you have to install this compiler when you need to run this. So let this finish downloading and then we'll continue after that. So we have finished installing this SCSS package. Now let us test our application by running it by saying npm start. And as always, ensure that you are in the front-end folder before running any commands. Otherwise, you will be starting the backend for this project. We are not concerned with the backend right now. We'll check the backend after we are done with the basic UI, designing, all those, okay? Although most of I have covered it in the CSS file. Okay, so if you have started the server successfully, your browser should automatically open and show a React logo, spinning React logo, in fact. So now what I have done here is come to app.js and remove every content inside this div element right here, inside the class name app. Remove all of this and just write hello world for now and save it. Now then you should see only hello world right here. Let me zoom it up. So this is how it works. Whenever you save this application, it will auto reload there. And I hope most of you all should already be knowing this. Okay, now let us start with the basic layout. So if you go to the main.scss file, you can see that I have already written styles for some of the basic elements like title, app wrapper, left container, all this. So what we need to do, let us create a div element with app wrapper first, and then insert left container and right container there. So now inside src folder, I'll create the components folder. So this is how standard structure is created for any application. Components. So here inside the components folder, we'll have various component files, .jsx files, in fact. So first it'll be app-wrapper.jsx. So here I have installed an extension again, which will help us to quickly spin up a new React component. It's basically like syntax completion plugin. So it is RFC, React Functional Component. So whenever you hit enter, you'll just need to write app wrapper. So now we have a React functional component. Just write app wrapper. So this is a simple component now. So here we will add our elements. Now go to app.js and import this component. So import app wrapper from we need to go /components and then /app-wrapper, and just now render this component instead of hello world right here. So app wrapper. Now save it. Now you should see in your browser such as this output app wrapper. Now here in SCSS file we have left container and right container. Okay, if you check the reference image, you will find that this is the left container right here where all the user list will be there, and this is the right container where we'll display our status and also provide options to create our status and add image or add text like that. We can view here status or create status. As we click the users, the status will switch to that particular user's belonging post. So now we'll create two more components here. Say left container.jsx, and one more which is right container.jsx. Left container will do the same, rfc, hit tab, left container. If you're confused here which extension I'm using, let me show you up. In extensions I should have React ES6, ES7 snippets. This one, ES7 React Redux GraphQL snippets. There are 3 million downloads. So download this for quick snippets for React. It's really helpful whenever you're developing a project and you need to spin initial code fast. So here I will give a class name left container to apply the styles written in the style sheet, and also left container simply. In the similar way, I'll copy up everything and I'll go to right container and then I'll paste it up here, and just I'll rename this component files to right container, and here it should be command D right container. Now go to this time we need to go to wrapper component, this one app wrapper, and here just import the left and right containers from /left container, copy down the same. Here it will be right, RZST, and here also it will be right. Now here instead of app wrapper, we don't need this text anymore. Just render left container, and we can render directly by JSX syntax, and then here it will be right container. And also provide the class name of app wrapper, app-wrapper, because the styles are nested inside this component. Okay, so this is the structure we have created. Now if you check your browser, you'll find that they are lined up one above the below, right? Now the main reason why the styles are not being applied to these components is because we have not imported the SCSS file that I told you to download in the beginning. So go to app.js and simply import it just like this CSS file, copy it down, and just say /main. Since it's in the same directory, main.scss. Now if you save it, and you should see a beautiful layout, properly structured, the left container and the right container. So we have got the initial structure for our application. Now we need the header, then the users. So let us first do that with the dummy users. Alright. In the reference image, we see that there is a title right here. So it has a class name app title. And also in SCSS file, you'll find that there is a class name with app title. And this is there in the left container. So we'll go to the left container component and then we'll try to create this title element. So go to left container and then here hit enter. Now remove this text here. Just write div. There is a shortcut here. It's called emmet. In VS Code there is emmet, with which we can quickly, using these symbols like div or dot, we can create class names easily. So we'll say div.app-title. So this will create a div element with app title class, and here we'll write WhatsApp status. Now you save it, and then in your browser you should see like this WhatsApp status. Since my browser is zoomed out, you should look like that, the layout. But for clarity, for this video, I'm zooming it in so that it's visible clearly. Now let us quickly get done with the users. So here each of this element, first of all, this is a wrapper element. This will be the user container component, and this is the user item component. Alright, so let us create two component files and then add the class names to them. So in the components folder, we'll create user container.jsx, And then also we'll create one more component file, which is user item.jsx. So in user container, just write rfc React functional component, hit enter, type the component name properly, user container, and then here we'll give class name equals to user hyphen container. And these class names have already been styled in the SCSS file. And here we will import the user item elements. So now let's go to user item first, and then say rfc React functional component user item. And here say we have user item simply for now. Later we'll update it. Put a class name of user hyphen item. Now just go to user container and import here user item, import user item from /user hyphen item. Now here render some user items, say user item, just copy paste it 4 times or so, something like that, and now check it in your browser whether it's coming or not. It's not coming because we have not rendered the user container in the left container. So this user container component right here we need to import in the left container component. So import user container from /user hyphen container, this one right here, and here below the WhatsApp status just render user container to see what it outputs us. And you see that there is already element with hover styling. And now if you want to add an image, we just need to add one image element. In the design of our application, there is an user image right here and there's user title right here. And come to the main CSS file. Here, how I've styled, there is a user item component. So this is basically a div element with class name user item. Then inside this there will be another div element with an image element. Okay. So we need to follow the structure so that the style get applied. And we have to add one h1 element to contain the name of the user. Say this one. So simply follow the structure. So for that, we'll go back to our user item component. Now search here user item in your editor. Alright, so this is a div element with user item class, which is correct. And now inside this we'll have another div element with an image element. So I'll say div, and inside this div create img image element. And here what I want you to do is I want to go to your web browser and search for any simple background image. As you can already see, our style, there is a gray image here but no images. So we'll search for an image, say landscape or something, and go to images. And what you do, you select a particular image, say this green background right here, click it, and oh, this is too large. Make sure you select a medium sized pixel like 800. Yeah, 800 is also fine. So this one, and then you right click on it and then get image address. Alright, so you click copy image address. Once you copy this image address, go to src and paste it right here. This is webp, and then in alt say user image. Later we'll put the username. And here after the div element, to follow the structure as given in SCSS file, we need to create an h1 element. Alright, with the user name. Later we'll dynamically input here the username, but for now let us see what's the output. As you can see, it's already rendering a beautiful output right here with username, which will come dynamically soon, and then we have an user image right here. So for now, for the purpose of simplicity, we have added all the user images same in this application. We'll do like that. But if you want to change it according to the user, you have to store in the database and get their image URL and display it here as a profile picture. Now we need to design the right side of the container. Left container, we have created our basic UI elements. So first let us update the text to create our view status. So go to the right container. So right container, and then here instead of simply writing right container, we'll say create or view status. Save it, and you should see in your browser create or view status like that. And now on the bottom right, we have two small buttons which help us to create the post. It'll open up a model when it is clicked, but for now we need to create the UI elements first. So we have to create a fab component. Fab means floating action button. So create a fab component right here. fab.jsx. So this fab component and RFC React Functional Component fab, it should be capital letters. And inside the fab component, we need to know what are the elements that we need to put. So for that, I'm going to main.scss. Let me just close up all these files. So first of all, put a class name of fab to the parent element. Say class name equals to fab. Then the next thing is you want span elements, alright? You want actually two span elements. The first is for this pencil icon. The second is for the image icon, for the image button. So here we need two span elements. So span, say create. Let me just say text, and one is the image post. So text and image. Now when you save it, you should see we see nothing because we have not imported. We forget that. So we have to go to the right container. So hit Control P or Command P, then go to right container. Then here import the fab component which you just created. So import fab from /fab. So this itself. And here render. After creator view status, just render it to see what comes. Fab component. Now whenever you save, you see that they are oval and they are not centered because it's a little bit wide. If we have icons right here, then their size will be circle. So now to get the icons, we have to go to Google Material Icons and then import the script and then use here. So go to a new tab in your browser and search for Google Material Icons. So be careful that there is also another one, Material Icons. It's called Material Design Icons, not this one. I'm talking about this Google Material Icons. Alright, so here you need to import the script. Basically the script you will find when going to this icons, Google Fonts. And there if you search for there should be guide somewhere. If you click an icon, you can see follow the instructions to embed the icon. Let me zoom up. So if you click these instructions, you'll be headed to another site. So there you can see guides section right here. If you zoom up, go to this guide section. Inside this guide section, you should see a link. Icons, sorry, it was Material Icons Guide. In Material Icons, if you scroll down, you will find the src somewhere, the script file. So this one right here. There are various methods to attach Google Fonts to your site. So the first step is using this CDN link right here. There are also steps by installing using NPM, alright, but this is the most simple one. So copy this script and simply go to index.html of your public file. So go to public folder in your front end, and then here in index.html just paste this Google Material Icons. After you pasted it, save it up and then go back to right container. Inside the fab component, instead of text now, you have to say span class equals to Material Icons. Material Icons. And we need class name of Material Icons here also. And then now we need to know which name. What is the name of the icon, right? So let's search for edit or pencil, something like that. Edit. So outline will not work. We have to search a simple one. Say pencil or create. If I say create, I think create and edit is the same here. Say pencil. Sometimes you need to search multiple times. So this right here, create, it's outlined. We need a simple one, field. So this one right here, we got it. So Material Icons, edit. Now simply type edit here and it should come. And also for the image, we will search image. So be careful right here. If you're trying to use outlined icons like this, say edit Material Icons outline, this will not work because we have not imported the script for the outline icons and they are different. We have imported the script only for this field ones, say Material Icons only, like that. So image is right here. You can simply say image. It should be small I. So now these icons should be automatically detected and updated in our browser. So let's go back to our browser and see what we have the output. and you should see a pencil icon right here, which is edit, and an image icon right here. Now we need these two to be buttons so that when we click them, a model is opened up. So the user representation of the model will be something like this. So whenever we click one of the span elements, we'll be adding an onClick event. It will set the display model state to true, something like that. And then our model, which we have pre-styled, will come up with a form like this, so that we can create the text post that we want. And whenever we click cancel, the model will be closed back again. And this will be the similar case also for the image model. Whenever we click this image span element button, we will see create image post and something like that. So first of all, our purpose is to create this model element and the basic UI components right here, the form elements. So in your components folder, create model, the JSX, and here type RFC, React Functional Component, model, and here you have to give a class name of model as I've pre-styled it, class name model, and here whatever we pass inside the model component, we want it to render here, right? So it will be something like a container element. So what I'll say, I'll take a props here, and we can render the children, something like this, props.children. So whenever we use this component, as you'll come to know right now, we have to go to the fab component, because now we'll add events here, say onClick, here also onClick event, and there will be same state shared between the model and the fab component. So first of all, we want to simply design the model without any functionality of closing and opening it. So we'll import model right here, model from model, which is correct, and here we'll simply say model. And as you remember, we have used React props.children. So whenever we type something here, such as I am a model, and save it up, it should open up in your browser something like this, I am a model, which is very large because I zoomed it too much. I zoomed out. So whenever you save the code, you should see this kind of model, and the text or any content inside this model that we render should display up here. As we have seen in the model, we have run props.children, and because of this, it's displaying everything there. Now inside this model, we can create our input elements. So now let us go to main.scss and see their stylings. So if you're curious, you can always study up the styles that I have provided. So this was the style for the model. It was position fixed, and all this padding and adjustments were done. Now if we come down, we can see there's select input and input element, and I have done some pre-styling. So if we check the design of our application, there should be an input element. And of course, before this, there will be a create text post title. So below these two input elements, so one will be the username, alright, whatever username we want to post the text, and the second one is the text that we want to post, and the third one is the background color of our text post, alright. So let us create the input files for the text post, and then also we have to add two submit buttons. And what is the cancel button? In our form, we'll have two input elements and this title element. So let's go to fab component. Here in fab component, we'll be toggling this displaying and hiding model on click of this span elements. So that's why we kept all of them together, as I've already told. So inside the model, you create a text element. Say inside div, we'll say create text post. Later we'll update this to for image, we'll show image post. But for now, we want to just see the UI elements. And then we'll have input, just hit input and tab, it's a text, copy one more. Now we'll need two button elements. So let's say button, cancel, one for canceling, and one for this saving the post. And if you now save, and let's see what we get in the browser, we see this broken layout of input elements, and we see one button above the other. Now let's try to align them horizontally, right? And put some padding across this title element also. Now since these elements are broken, what we can do is to line them up, we'll have to wrap them inside a flex container and justify contain the center. So we will simply write up a small style right here, not here, in fab, in fab component. For this cancel and save buttons, we'll say a div element. And here in React, we add style as style inside an object, right? In React, we have to create an object inside this JSX syntax, and we'll say display display flex. It should be inside string. As you save it, you will find the output is like that. It's in the left side, so to center it, we'll say justify content center. As the flex direction is row by default, so we'll say justify content center. And now when you hit save, it should now see like this, so which is great. Now let me zoom up to see how it actually looks in 100% height. So yeah, we need one more select element, and then we'll put some margin right here, but we don't need any margin since I've already created a class called title. So for this element, let me add a class title here. So div class equals to class name, div class name equals to title. Now whenever you save it, you should see that there is a beautiful padding and margin already right here. Now we just need one more element, so let's add it. The select drop-down element right here will allow us to specify the color of the post that we want. So if we say the color is sky blue and then we post the text with hello world for this user, we will see output something like this, that we will have a new user element with this hello world text. And if we have multiple posts, if we post with the same user again, it will be added to the next post, and we can switch it using the right arrow and left arrow, and the post background will be blue color right here. And this will apply only to the text element. So let us provide some default options like blue, yellow, like that, right? So let's create the select element. Say select and /select. So here we will have options, right? Let's check the reference design, what we have. So in select, alright, we simply have a drop down, there is no message, something like that. We say option, name is not required. We'll be manipulating everything through React. We'll just need value, so sky blue, and the value must be equal to the CSS color that you want to apply. You can also provide in this hexadecimal code, but it should be recognizable and parsable by CSS. So option value, so it should be sky blue. So this message right here is for the user, and let us copy it a few more times and provide a few other colors. Say yellow, and I would like to provide red also. We should basically provide only the light colors because the text color will be the black color, it will be dark. So if you provide dark background, it won't look good, but still let's provide red. And then we also have light green, and here we say light green. And one more we can provide, say orange. It is also a good color. We'll say orange. So it's sufficient. Now let us see the output in the browser, and we can see that sky blue is default selected. So let it be like that. We can select red, light green, and whatever value for the color we have specified here will be passed to the backend. And here we can add placeholders like enter username, enter post text. So let's do it. So example placeholder equals to first will be username, and the second one will be placeholder equals to post text. Save it. It should be something like this right now, which is great. Now we are unable to cancel or save it. Also for opening image, we need to update it later. So now we have to create states and use the actual features of React. So to toggle the visibility of the model, go to the model component, and there we'll add a style. Say display. Suppose we say display none right now. Then we will not see the model, and it will be just like the normal user interface layout. But if we set it to display block, say block, then it will come back right here. So this property right here, we need to toggle between block and none. So we will do that based on a prop. So we will pass a prop, say visible or invisible, say visible true or visible false, and based on that we will toggle that. So let's say we are passed a prop called props.visible. So if it's visible, then you have to put a question mark using a ternary operator. Then if it is not visible, we'll say display none. So if it is visible, it will be blocked, and otherwise it will be null. So by default this will be false right here, or undefined, so the none will run. So if we don't send any prop right here, so this will not come up. So now let's go back to fab component, and in the model component let's specify a prop called visible, say true. Now if you put true here, you should see this coming up here, and if we put false back, false, you should see the model going away. So now this state we should be able to maintain based on the button click of this edit and this image element, these two buttons. So what we'll do, we'll create a state, right? We'll create states in React so that we can maintain them. So for that we have to import use state. So just after this React import, right here, put a comma and destructor use state here, and here create a straight variable before the return statement. As you know, in functional components using hooks such as useState, for useState we get back a pair. Okay, so one is the state that we want to store, say model visible, and one will be set model visible, which we can call to update the state called for the first one. Say set model visible right here, and here by default it will be false. Now we just need to pass this model visible right here, and then we need to toggle this based on the click. Alright, so not toggle, basically on clicking edit it should open up, and clicking cancel it should close it. So we'll say on click, because this is how you add events in React, by the way. So here specify this arrow function, and in this arrow function we will call this function right here, the state updating function. In set model visible we'll set it to true. In a similar way we'll simply copy it down for image, as it's the same functionality right here. So for image also we'll set model visible to true, but for this cancel we'll specify that it is false. So we want to hide the model for cancelling. So now if we go to our application, this should work. So on clicking this we can see a model coming up, and then clicking cancel it should close back. So we are not providing transitions, as this has been left to you. If you want to do, you can try as a challenge to add transitions on opening up model, like fade in and fade out. So now we have to detect whether we click this text post or whether we click this image post, and based on that we need to update this, like create image post, and if it is an image post then we have to set this to image URL, because in the database, in the backend, the APIs accept image URL to post, and if it is image URL we don't need this background color. That's also the case. So save will not work, this functionality not added now, this will come much later. So let's continue with this detection of image or text post. To detect whether the type of the post is text or image, we have to create another state to store the post type. So for that we'll create another state, say post type, and here we have to say set post type, all in camel case. So post type by default will be text, and if it is image, by default we'll provide text. Now if we say text here, and if we want to use again this constant text here, there are chances that we may misspell. Example, if we say test or text like that, or text, because we'll use it also in Redux, this value right here, such as text or image, whatever it is. So we want it to store in a constant, right? I want it to store in some constant place or constant file. So for that I will be creating a folder called utils. So this is a common structure that is followed in production applications. So in utils, just for demonstration I'm creating this. So I'll say post.utils.js or whatever it is. I'm just saying say post.js, doesn't have to be post.utils.js. And here I will create a variable const post types equals to, so the post types will be, one is text. So for text, these codes are optional right here. So for text we'll say it's a text value, and similarly for image we'll say image, and here it will be small caps or lower caps image. Now we'll just export it, say exports, we can say export const, or we can also say export defaults, say post types. So we have exported this variable right here, and using this we can get we can use in many places or for comparison, right? So this is a better way to organize the values, this kind of values which determine, right? So let's go back to our fab component, .jsx. So here import post types. So post type, we have to destructure post types from. Now you have to go out of components and now you have to go inside utils, then post. So make sure the variable name is matching with what you have exported. So post types is correct. Now we can use this variable right here to specify, instead of directly writing the string here, which is not a good practice. So post types the text, it should be text, it should come. Post types is not exported. Alright, this destructure syntax is wrong. If you are exporting multiple, then you cannot use default. So let us save it up. Now here we see another error, cannot read properties of undefined. So this seems to be undefined. Const post types, export post types is correct. If we import post types from this, so let me check what's the issue and I'll come back here. The reason was only that we were exporting in the wrong way, like export default. So we have to export like this and save the file, then the issue should be solved. And also I have seen one mistake here. It should be post type. There was a typo, post type. So this is post type and set post type. Now the post type default is text right here. So later on click, not later, now on click we'll update it based on image or text. So now we want to externalize this function right here. So on click this.setModelVisible, I want to extract it to a separate function which will define up here. So we'll say const, it's an arrow function, we'll say text image text post, open text model, it's a arrow function, and here it will be set model visible true, so this is not required anymore. So we'll need one more, open image model, open text model, one is image. Now simply provide these functions so that this will be called by React whenever we run the event on click. So now it will be more cleaner because we have to add more events like updating the state to image whenever we click on image, all of which we'll be doing right here. So here it should still work like before, which is perfectly fine. Now we'll set the type right here. So say set post type. Here it will be post types dot text if it is text. Now as you can see we are using in multiple places, so it should benefit us now. Otherwise we had to use text here, again text here. Later if we had to text to change it to something like test or whatever, then it will be very difficult because in multiple places we are duplicating. But since we are now storing in a constant, so just updating the constant will work. So here it will be post types.image. Now on saving, we can also console log here. Yeah, we can console log here, or we can display here itself now. So if we, sorry, it's only single brace. So here we can display the post type variable, create this kind of post. So if we save it and now click one of these, we can see create text post, or if we click this image we can see create image post. This means that our state variable is updating properly based on the click, right? So what I want to do before setting the model, I want to update this. So now we are ready to determine, and then create the input elements based on this post type. So we have already done for this text, we have displayed the post text and username, but for this image we just need username and we need the image URL. If the post type is image, we'll display only image URL here and not post text and this background color. So let's come here and add a condition, turn in a condition that if post type is equal to post underscore types this constant dot text, then we will display this whole part right here, including input type text and this. Otherwise we'll display this input type text and add here image URL, image URL. Now here we can see this error here because we need to group these elements up inside a single root element. So we'll add this syntax right here, which is called React fragment, and now we have grouped them up. So let's see what we see, get the result. Create text post is fine, we have post text and background image, but in create image post we have this image URL right here. so which is correct and as expected. Alright, so now to submit the form, we need to store and get these values into a variable so that we can send them on clicking save, right? So we have to make this form input elements controlled, okay, in React, and for that we have to create new state variables. So let's say the first one will be for this input element, which is username. So we'll say username, and this will be set username, and let it be empty by default, which will be this one. So this two will also be like that, and the next one will be text, and this is set text. Then this third one will be, let's see what we have. We have this background color, so background color, we can just say background and also say set background. Then we have one more for image URL. As you know that for image we have image URL, which is a different element, so for that also we have to store, which is image URL, then set image URL. So now we have created the state variables. What we need to do now is to connect them. So here we have to add onChange event. So onChange equals to, then we'll use a function, arrow function, which will get the event element, right? Event attribute, and then we can use that event object for updating the state. This one right here, we can use set username, I guess. Alright, for here we have to do set username. Here we have to do set text e.target.value. So whenever the value will change, we'll get this event object right here, and then we'll set and update the text to target's value. Alright, so we have to do the same here on the other input elements as well. So in username we'll say set username, and then we have this here for select, it will be set background color. You can also do this. This is easy, this is not that difficult. So this, we missed it, yeah. So then we have image URL, so just copy this, same thing, and set here image URL, so this will be updated. So we have done for this background color, and alright, on change username. Alright, we have added all these variables for the 4 elements. I think we need to add one brace here. Yeah, so now everything seems fine. Now what we need to do is to test whether these values are being stored or not. On saving, we have to create a function now. Right now what we are doing is we are just calling an inline function right here. Okay, this is for cancelling. For saving we have not added any event, so we'll add an event handler right here. So on click, say add post or save post, whatever it is, we'll say save post. So this will be the function that will be called, right? Now let us define the function above right here. So const save post equals to, now here we'll console log the form values are whatever it is, then just console log clg the shortcut, and let us just use these values: username, text, then background, and then image URL. Now let us save this file and see whether it runs properly or not. So whenever you first open up the console so that you can test properly, clear it up. Let me zoom in a little bit. So type something, select some color and save it. So the form values are this username, then this text, and this background color right here, which is exactly working nicely. And image URL of image, save. So this is also working. Here we also see the background color, right? Because it was entered in the other post. So what I want to do is I want to clear the value. Whenever we close the model or whenever we open it up, then I want it to be cleared so that we can enter newly. Create a new function called const clear form values equals to this function, and here we'll call all this set post type to empty, Set post type is not necessary. We can do set username to empty all the form input values. Then the next will be set text to empty. In the similar way, copy up for the other four also. Set background, then set image URL. So alright, now we need to call this function in both of this whenever we open text model or whenever we open image model. So we have to call this function. Now let us test whether it works or not. So whenever I type something, you can already see it's not working because of one problem, that whenever we made this control form, example on change of value, we are updating the state, but whenever we are updating the state like that, the form value is not updating, as you can see, because we have not synchronized them. To do that, we have to also add one more attribute, which is value attribute, so that whenever the state changes, the value of this input will be synchronized, right? Whenever we update the state, the value will update, or whenever the value will change, the state will also update. So it is called control form in React. There is also documentation that you can read it on it. So on value we have to add the state here, which is right here, text. What is this? This is username. For username you have to add username. In the similar way, copy it up. For text it will be value equals to text, and then the next one for select it will be value equals to background, which is done. And for the last one, the value will be image URL. Now save it up and let's test it again. So whenever you click and type something, then save it. Okay, we also need to close the model on save. Whenever you open up again, you see that the form values are clear. Now just we need to close the model on save, and then we are ready to move to Redux. So we have to say set model visible to false, and that's it. On saving, the model is closing now. Also, one more condition we gotta add is that if the form values, if one of the required form values are empty, then we should not allow them to save it. Okay, example, if username is empty for text post or background color not selected, okay, here we have default value, but if we have text post not selected, then it should not allow to save. We'll just not close the model for now, or we can now let's put the condition. So const allow to save. So save post will depend on the post type actually. So let's say allowed to save is false by default. So if post type is equal to post types dot text, so if it is text, let's find out whether these values are present or not. Say if we have username and text, and also we need the background. So if we have all these three values, then we are allowed to save. So allowed to save equals to true. Otherwise, else if the post type equals to post types dot image, then we need to have username and we need to have the image URL. We don't need the text of the post for this condition. So if it is image, then allowed to save will be true if we have username and image URL. But for text type, we need the username, text, and background. We don't need the image URL. We don't care whether it's there or not. Now set model visible or whatever condition for saving to the backend, whatever request we send will only be done if we are allowed to save. So if allowed to save, then we'll also make it false, and then here we will later add fetch request to save the post, right? So let us check it out. Let's type just post text and not type username, so it will not be allowed to save. But if we also type the username, background color is already selected, we see there is some error. Assignment to constant variable. So allowed to save should be let, should not be const. So now on clicking save, we are allowed to save. Now when we open again, the form values are clear, which is correct. If we just type this and click save, it will not save it, it will not close it up. In the same way, for image URL, if we write nothing, it will not save, or if you just type username, then also it will not work. We have to also type the image URL, then it will close up. So with this, I think we are ready now to connect with Redux, right? To set up the logic for Redux, to save the post, and then some more will be there. But for the form, we are ready. So let's get into Redux. So I have closed up everything. Now open up your terminal in VS Code, and then disconnect the server of the frontend. So now here we'll install the packages. So npm npm install. First is Redux, then the second one to connect Redux and React is called React Redux package, and then the last one for doing asynchronous requests is called Redux Tongue. It's a middleware. It's like an utility tool which will connect with Redux for making asynchronous requests. So now just run all of this by clicking enter and let it install. Alright, so we have installed all our packages. Now let us run the server again, npm start, and just hide this terminal. It'll do its job. Now we have to create our Redux folder here inside src, which will deal with all the Redux logic of storing, right? Storing, adding, maintaining the state over the application. So we have to say Redux, which is another folder right here, and here we'll have reducers. You have to know Redux to continue from now on. So here the Redux concept you should already be knowing because it cannot be learned in just an hour, right? So there are actions, types, reducers, and store. So here we'll create 4 folders, which is files, sorry. One is store.js, then one is post.types.js. Here all the different types of actions will be stored, and then we'll create one for reducer.js, and then the last one will be for post.actions, the different kind of actions like save the post, or fetch all the posts, or update the username, active username. So all these actions will be here, and the types, the action types will be here, and then we'll also have to connect the store with the application. So first what we'll do, we'll try to connect the simplest application possible in Redux. So simplest setup, I would say. So here we'll have initial post state. So in post reducer we have const initial post state, right? Initial post state will be whatever it is, then will be const post reducer initial post state and post reducer. Okay, that's fine. I will just name it initial state actually. So post reducer is actually a function. It's actually a function which will receive the current state. So let's say the current state, by default we'll set state to initial state, and also it will receive the action element, not active, action element, and here it has to return some kind of state. For now we'll just return state here, and what we'll do, we'll export default post reducer. Okay, so post reducer is a function that takes the current state and the action which has been fired, and it returns a new state. So new state, we are just returning state for now to see whether it connects or not. So actions and reducers, we are not going to add anything. So in store.js you have to import the reducer files first. So import, say, create store from Redux. So there is create store, and let's try it. Const store equals to create store. Create store here. Let's see the parameters what you need to pass. The first one is the reducer you need to pass. So this reducer function we are exporting right here, we have to import it here. So say import post reducer from /post.reducer. So you're past the post reducer right here, and directly instead of passing, I will say we should create a root reducer. Alright, a root reducer is something which combines multiple reducers. Even for this course, if we don't need, later it may be helpful for you to expand, and also it's a good practice to use root reducer. So root reducer will group up all the reducers right here. So if we have post reducer or user reducer, like that. So create a root reducer equals to, we have one more function called combine reducers right here. So we'll say combine reducers, and then here you will pass the reducers object. So here we have the post, right? Let's say post, it will be post reducer, and then just pass the root reducer here, and now export defaults, the store, export default store. Now with this store exported, we can now import it in our index.js, and here we need to connect the Redux application with the store. So for that we have to first import the store from /redux/store, and after we import the store we need to import the function called provider, the component called provider, which will help us to connect it and provide the state to the sub-components and the child components. Import provider from React Redux, this time not Redux. React Redux provides the component called provider, and here you have to pass the store attribute store prop, which takes the store itself, and it must wrap up all the elements inside it, right? Only then we can use Redux inside this application. So if you check the terminal, let's see whether we have error or not. We see that we have no error and the application should run as before, because we have done it correctly. Or let's save it. We did not save it at all. Yeah, still it's fine. And store, this is store, alright. So it's the collection of all the state right here, all the master state, I would say, for the application. And now we have to add the different types of actions where the logic for connecting with the backend, like sending requests to save the post or save the post or fetch the post, all this will be here, and then types will be defined here to let us know what kind of actions are possible, like saving, fetching, all of this. Now let us first define our state of the application. This application will contain the state, the master state, which will have active username. First of all, active username will determine which user we are currently clicking on. Alright, so if we click here, this will be the active username, and all his posts and text posts, image posts will be seen on the right side. Alright, so if there is no active username, if it is null, which is this by default, then we have the options to create post. But if we have an user selected when it is not null, then the post will be displayed right here. So this state will be stored in active username. And then the next value, which is post array. Alright, posts. Alright, here we will store the list of the posts of the active username. Example, if this username right here is active, then all of his posts we will fetch first, and then we will store in this property, in post property. And then the last one is users property. The users array will store the list of the users which we see on the left side of this panel right here. Example, if we have 3 users or 4 users in our application, then this will be populated with that value. Alright, so these 3 are the properties that we need to have for this application. So now we have to set the post types, which is the second step. So we have to go to post types and add the conditions, or add the constants, right, which will determine when to save posts or when to save users. So those constants we have to define right here. Then we'll move to actions. So what we do in action types here, post types, is that we define the constants, which will be used in both this action file right here, and also in this reducer file right here. So these constants are used for defining cases in switch cases. So to know what kind of action it is. Alright, so first of all, let's define const post action types. So I use this convention, I say action types after this reducer name, right? So then we have here actually 3 actions. One is set post, so which we'll use to set all the posts, set post. Then we have set users, and then we have at last set active username. So these 3 actions are sufficient are fully sufficient for us to control the reducer state. Alright, so if we want to update the reducer post, then it will use this type set post. If you have to update the active username to null or whatever value, you'll use set active username, and similarly it goes for post. So these three are the only action types that we need for this application. Now we need to export default post action types and save it up. Now whatever types we defined in this post.types, this will be used in actions file as well as in the reducer file. So in action file, we'll first import this post types right here. So import post action types from /post.types. Since we have export default right here, so this will be imported easily. So now actions are just objects like this, which has a type property and which has a payload property. So payload is the data that we are sending along with the type, and the type will be one of the constants that we have defined here, whether the type is set post or set users or set active username. So this type will also be used here in switch case statement to determine what kind of action it is. So now we'll send this action using a function which are called action creators. So we have to define three prime action creators, which is set post, set users, and set active username. So first it will be set post equals to the post. It will get a post value, post parameter, which will pass whenever we dispatch this action. So we will pass this post value to set, and then its type will be post action types dot set post, and then its payload will be post. Alright, so here we have payload property. Let's see what's the problem. Yes, we are not returning an object. We have to return an object right here, since this is the arrow function syntax. So we have set post. Similarly, we will have set users and set active username, so which is very much the same. So just copy them up and set. The second one is users. Set users for this, for manipulating this value right here, this property. So set users get all the users, and then here update it to users. And then the last one is set username, active username. In fact, set active username. Let's get the active username, and then here let us update it to set underscore active underscore username. So these three action creators, which create an action, of course, which is an object. So these objects will be passed to the reducer, and it will be received as a second parameter. Alright, Redux will send it as the second parameter, and then here we'll use switch case statements to determine what kind of action it is, and then update this property right here. So for now, let's export them as set post, all three of them, set post, set username, and set active username. So these three we have exported. So now let's move to the reducer. Okay, so let's define our reducer function right now. So whatever action that we receive here, we see that we are passing the type property as well as the payload property right here in all of the actions, right? Type property and payload, as you can see. So this type property we can switch right here. Switch, say action.type, since all of the actions that we send will have a type property. So here the action types can be one of these three, right? As defined in the post action types, it can be one of these three actions, which is set users, set post, or set active username. So let us import it first here. So import post action types from post.types. So now let us add the case statements. So case, the first one will be post action types dot set post. So if the type is this one right here, set post, then what we'll do is we'll return a new state. Every time whenever the reducer is called by Redux, whenever we update a state, it must return a new object. Alright, so first we are returning the current state right here. Alright, using the spread syntax. First we are returning the state, and then whatever updates that we got to do, we will be doing that below that. So what we want to do is we want to update the post to whatever the payload is. Alright, so action.payload. Since we are passing in post actions a payload property, so whenever we dispatch this function, we will pass the new post, alright, that we need to update, and then this will be received here as action, and then the post will be action.payload, and then the reducer state will be updated, and which will be reflected in all the places wherever the application is using the state. So in the similar way, since we are returning, we don't have to use break statements. In the similar way, I'm copying this right now. And if you're confused in the case statements, we are always free to use braces. I like using braces because they visually organize the code better and structure more nicely. So the second one will be users, and then the action is set users. So I think by now you understand why we have set this constant in a separate file, because they can be reused in both of them and it's constant throughout. So the last one is active username. So the name must match with the property that you're defining right here. So active username, so action.payload is correct, and here it will be set active username. Alright, now one more thing is that we must always return state. The problem, yeah, everything seems fine. Now what we can do is we can move this into the default case actually. So if the cases doesn't match, we can say default return whatever state it is, or just return the current state. We could also put it outside, but this seems fine to me, or you can structure whatever standard way you like. So if none of the cases match, you must always return a state as said by reducer, alright, in its documentation. So we are doing that in the default condition. Now that we have set up these action creators are not enough, alright? So these creators are like static kind of creators. Example, this will be used in turn by another set of creators which are asynchronous, alright? Example, if we say fetch post, if we have an action called fetch post, it will fetch all the posts and then it will in turn call this action, it will dispatch this action, set post, then it will update the reducer state. So we will have few more actions down here which will be asynchronous, and for that we will need a plugin called Redux Thunk. So let me check in package.json whether we have installed it or not. This is the package.json for the backend. So in the front end, if you check, we have installed Redux Thunk. If you have not installed, install it by running the command. And also, first of all, go to frontend folder, run here npm I redux thunk. Since it's already installed, and I hope you also have installed it, so we don't have to do anything. What we need to do but is to go to our store.js and configure it. So go to your store.js file. So let me close this up. So go to store.js in Redux folder, and here import Redux Thunk from Redux Thunk, Redux-Thunk. And here you have to use the one function called apply middleware, import it from Redux, and here as the second parameter in create store you have to write like this, apply middleware, and here pass the name of the middleware, Redux Thunk, like this. Let us a little bit discuss about Redux Thunk. So what we usually have is these actions right here, action creators, the return an object. So whenever we dispatch these action creators, we are actually dispatching this object, because we'll be calling this creator with the payload, and then it will return an object. But what Redux Thunk allows us is that it allows us to return asynchronous functions, where we can do asynchronous operations like async, await, using promises, making a request, which is not usually allowed by Redux. So now let us install one more package called Axios. Axios will help us to make fetch requests, alright, to the server in a simpler way than using the native fetch function provided by NodeJS and this browser. We'll use a package library called Axios. So go to your terminal in frontend folder, navigate to that, and install npm I Axios. So we'll use this package here to make requests. So what I want to do is, before using Axios, we have to import it. So import Axios from Axios. Now I want to set the base URL of the Axios, so where the request will be made, alright, the server URL. So for that you have to say axios.defaults.base URL equals to, now the base URL will be equal to the URL of our server, of our node server. So if you minimize all these folders and go to app.js, you should see the port number here, right? You can see the port is 5000, and then here we listen to the port. So it will be localhost http://localhost then :5000. So this will be our base URL where we have to make the request. So this package is installed. And I also wanted to run the script, run the front end tool, and start the project. So just type npm start for the React CLI to start our project if it was switched off. And now this is our base URL, and now we are ready to use Axios to set up sending requests to our server for creating posts and fetching posts. Now what I want you to do is to re-ensure that your MongoDB server is running and also your Node.js server is running. So in my case, Node.js server is not running, so I will create a new terminal, and I will ensure that I'm in the root folder of WhatsApp status right here, and then here in package.json I'll see the command. It is npm run dev. In npm run dev it will start using NodeMon for me, since I've installed NodeMon globally. And now database is also connected successfully, as well as the server is also listening. Now what we want to do is we want to do a little bit recap. Alright, we want to do a recap by using Postman, what we have developed before, our backend, right? So I want you to open up your Postman, where we created a collection and all those routes before, as you might remember. So now we have already created this route APIs, which we can call using fetch requests, right? Yeah, let me zoom out a little bit. Yeah, so here we can send the fetch request. We can create a post for a username. Yeah, we can get all the posts for that. We can delete a particular post. So let us try with getting all the users. This is the route /users. Just send the request, and you see that yeah, there is one user called Fess, right? Get all posts. Let's get all the posts belonging to a user. Here username is there, so in path variable we can tell David. Result is 0. Let's try Fess, which is one of the users. Yeah, Fess has one post here. So this is another route, and if you experiment you will come to know about it. We can create posts like that. We have to send username, image URL, image caption, and type is image. If it is image post. If it is a text post, then the properties will be different, which you can check from our code. Or also we can delete a post by sending a delete request to a particular post ID. So let us go to the code to check, first of all, to get all the to create a post. Alright, first we'll create a post by sending this kind of request here. So what we need to do is we need to first write our action creator, which will accept these properties, and it will dispatch a set post action. So we'll all come to know when we write that. So let's get started. So after you have started the server and connected to the database successfully, just minimize this terminal right here and go to post actions. Now we will create a function, which is an action creator, which is an asynchronous action creator in fact. So it's a thunk, it's called a Redux thunk, which is an action creator which returns a function. So here we'll say the name of it will be, say, create post. So now this create post function in turn will call set post, as we'll see very soon. So create post will first of all take a parameter called post. This post will be an object that will contain the necessary properties for creating a post like this, which will send in the body of the request. Example, type, username, image URL, image caption. All of these properties will be included in this post object. And now this will in turn return a function. Right, here we see that it returns an object right here. As you can see, this is a function, arrow function, which returns an object. But this will return another function, another arrow function, where we will make the request and then return and then call this set post. So here what we get is we get two more properties. So the first of all, the number one property is called dispatch. So this dispatch we can call here to in turn run those actions to the Redux. And then another one is getState. So we can call this function getState to get the current state of our application in Redux. So first of all, what we'll do is we'll make a request to this URL right here, which is to create a post. The URL is /post because the base URL is already http localhost 5000, which we have set above, as you can see here. So what we need to do is axios.get, and here the URL will be /post. Alright, and the base URL will be this one. So this URL after all will be set to made request here. So let's await this. So const, say we get the result here, then we have to await this. If you want to use the syntax for async and await, which is much cleaner than using promises like .then and .catch, then you also have to use async keyword right here. You have to make the function async, then you can use await here. You want to get all the posts? No, we want to create a post. So it will be a post request right here. As you can see, it's a post request. And then we have to send the body of the request, which is the post that we get as a parameter in this function. So, okay, let's see what response we get now. So if we send a request to create an image post, say, then click send, the response that we get back is inside a property called result, right? So in Axios, how do you get this property? So first of all, to get this object, it's stored in data property of the response. So the data is rest.data. So this is the data that comes back from the API, which includes the result as well as the message. So what we want to do is we want to access this result property, which is the newly created post. So what we'll do, const created post equals to data dot result. So here we have our created post. Now what we want to do is this is set post, alright. So now we want to use this function right here, this action creator. We want to dispatch it here and pass the created post. So let's see how we do that. Okay, so what I was thinking to do was, whenever we get back the created post, I was thinking to push it to the currently existing post array here. So whenever we create a post, we'll push it here. So later I found out that this will not work. So we have to get all the posts. So this post property actually will hold all the posts of the active username. Alright. So whatever currently active username is, so that username post will be right here. So creation of post and fetching all the posts will be two different functions. So that's why I am just leaving this function for now, and will not dispatch anything now here. So what we'll do is we will run this create post to see whether it creates a post or not. So what I want to do here is also export it so that we can use it from our function. Let's go now to so what was the code for that? Let's go to front end in public src components, and it was fab.jsx. So here you can see that if allowed to save, and yes, in save post function. So come to the component fab.jsx, and here there is a function called save post, and here after all the conditions are fulfilled, we have a part of the code here where we can make our request. So the request that we have to make is actually dispatch this action right here, and to use dispatch we have to import a function called useDispatch, of course. So from Redux, so let's do it, import useDispatch from React Redux actually. So from React Redux we have useDispatch, and this useDispatch we can call here above, yes, in the function main body we can call this, and we can store the dispatch called dispatch equals to useDispatch. So now dispatch is a function which we can use to call that action. So this create post that we have exported right here, so we have to import it here in fab component. So go to fab component, import it. So import, so what was the name of the function? It's create post. It's from dot slash, go out, go to the Redux folder, go to actions folder, and from actions we have now create post. Now we have to call the create post here, create post. So this create post right here we have to dispatch the dispatch that we have stored here. So this is the function which will connect the Redux state and the React component. So here in dispatch we have called create post. Now we have to pass the post here, which will contain all the properties. So the properties are scattered right now, as you can see. It's username, text, it's not inside a single object. So let's create the post object here. So const post equals to, so this object should contain the properties in correct name and order. So what I want you to do is to go to Postman and check what are the properties. Yes, we have type property. So the type, first one will be type, and the type will be same as post type. I believe we have already created a state for that. Yes, so this post type will properly store the type of the post, whether it's an image or text, from this constant. And then the next is username, I believe. Yeah, username, background color, light green. Alright, so we have next username. Username is also stored here, username. Then the next is background color. So what I want you to do is just pass all the properties that are possible. Background color is same as background. You can compare the state, and there is text. Let's check again, background color, then image URL, image caption. Alright, so text, where did it go? Alright, so this was an image post, so there was no text right here. So if I were supposed to create a text kind of post with username John, then I would not require this image URL and image caption. All I would need is background color. Background color say red, and then the another one will be text as hello world. Let's send this request and check what we get back. Okay, then we have text property and background color property. Alright, so that's fine. So we also need image caption property actually. If we check the front end, my front end is already running. If you check the front end, you see that here we are just getting the image URL. We also need to get a property, a field for image caption. So we'll do this right after that. So what we need is background color, then we need text property. So what I will actually do is I will send all the possible properties like text, image, background color, image caption, and then in the backend it will accept it, whatever property it is required depending on the post type. If it is text, it will just accept the background color and text like that. So text will be equal to text, then we have image URL will be image URL itself, I believe. Yeah. So then we have image caption, which we have not added, and we are going to add it very soon. So these 5 properties I believe should be enough. Yes, these are the 5 properties that are required. There are no more extra properties, and now we'll just pass this post to dispatch. And after this, we have to currently, instead of completing the save, first we have to add image caption right here. Let's copy this state here. Instead of image URL, it will be image caption. So set image caption, and this. Now in our form we have to add a form here. Where did it go? Here it is, I think. Yeah, this is for image URL, the second one is for image caption. Now since React does not allow returning 2 elements, it must be wrapped inside a root element if you're using a condition like that. So let it be this one, React fragment. So we have image caption, here's this caption, and this one will be set image caption right here, which is done. And now let's check allowed to save. So it should be allowed to save it as username and this. So now for image, it will be allowed to save if it has username, image URL, as well as image caption. So these 3 properties will be required now. So if we check our form, first of all, we should be able to see this one, image URL, username, image URL, and caption. If we don't fill them up, we cannot save it. But if we fill them up, we can save it. Now we have to await this code. Since we are using async await, and this is an asynchronous function, this dispatch right here, it will return an asynchronous function, so we have to use await right here. So for await, we have to make this async. We want to make it await so that whatever things we do asynchronous, and if we want to do step by step, like after this has processed, we want to close the model, we want to do in a synchronous manner, we have to use the async await syntax. So I want to wait until this completes, and then the model will be set visible to false. So just save up this code, and with actions in place and reducers in place, this should work. So create an image post with username, say test, and try to click save. It is instantly saved because we are using local host and we are not using any live server. Now come to your Postman and try to get all the users. You can see that we have John as well as test. So now try to get all the posts belonging to test, which we have just created. So if you try to get test, we can see that this image post right here, type image, you can ignore this background color. This is a default value, that's why it's coming. So the properties that we need is image, test, image URL, and image caption. Let us try one more. Currently we have users John, test, and fest. let's try to create a new post, text kind of post, create text post with username called David, and let's put the text as hello world David, and the color I want it to be yellow, and just save it. And now let's go and first get all the users, send. Yes, a new user called David has been created. Now try to get all the posts belonging to David. So username, say David, and send a request. Now you can see, yes, hello world David, this text has been created with background color yellow, which is correct. Now if we create one more post with the username, with the same username called David, and say hello world to David, say color will be sky blue, and just save it. I think we have not set the default value. We have to select it manually. The sky blue value isn't being read initially. So whenever we send again, we see that it's an array now. Yes, it was by default an array, but now it has two objects called, the first one as David, and the second one, sorry, the first one is hello world David, and the second one is hello world 2 David with the same color. Now we see that if we use this default value, it's not being read. So what I want here in our form is that it should have a default value. Okay, so the problem is here that whenever we type this, and even if you have sky blue color, it will not save, because actually in the state we don't have any value. So what we are doing is whenever we open a model, we are setting the background to empty string. So we don't want to do that here, right? This is the first case which is preventing us from doing this. So let's try again. So whenever we do just type this and with sky blue and save, it will still not work because we have not provided a default value in the beginning. So in background, I want to say the default value will be yellow. So let it be saved. Okay, and we have also removed this set background to empty whenever we open up the model. So in clear form values, it will not be set to empty now. And now it will also be yellow as default, which is one of the values here, which is recognized by CSS. So now if you open up this text form, yes, it is selected as yellow by default. It means that we have some value in our background. So whenever, let's try again, when we just open it, just type this and just save it. Now it will be saved with the yellow background color. Alright, so we can verify that by going to Postman and get all posts for, I don't know what user was that, I just randomly typed. So this seems to be the user. So now just copy the username here, just pass the username in this path variables of Postman, just save it up and send it. You can see that it has been saved with the background yellow color. So with this we have done the work of creating our post, right? So it seems exciting. And now if you have not understood properly, you should have a knowledge of working with Redux and how to connect it, right, with the React components. But you can still keep on following, and I'll try to explain as much as possible. So we have done the work of creating through this form. Our next job will be to fetch all the available usernames here, which is not that, which is slightly difficult. So to get all the users, we will now create an action creator, which will return a function, which is a thunk. So we will just copy this up since it's very similar. The name of this will be fetch users. So this will be used for loading all the users when we load the application or whenever we create a new post. Alright, so we don't require any parameter here. What we do need to change is this one right here in the URL. So if we go to Postman, you'll find that the URL for get all users, and if you send a request, you'll find that it returns an array of usernames. So the URL is /users and it's a GET request. So what we need to do is we need to change this to exeos.get, and instead of /post it will be /users. And we don't have to pass any parameters since it's a GET request. So the result will come in this format .result. So we can say const users equals res.data because the returning response is stored in data, and in the data we have a result property. So we'll access it like that. So the list of users are here. Now we need to set the users using this function. So we have to dispatch this action creator, so that now reducer gets this action and stores it in its state. So just copy dispatch, and here you just have to pass set posts, and here you have to pass the users. So set post will take the users, okay, and then now the state will be updated. So this fetch users we need to export, and now this is ready for dispatching from the user container component. So now let's go to the user container component and use this fetch users function. So go to your components and find the user container component. So here we'll fetch all the users by calling that function. Also open the file post.actions, as we'll need it side by side to see and compare the things for explanation. So fetch users, here we need to dispatch. For that we will need the function called useDispatch from React Redux. Now since it's a React functional component, we can use hooks here, React hooks. So first get the dispatch from useDispatch. Now we need to dispatch it whenever it mounts. So for that you have to import useEffect from React, useEffect. So we can mimic the mounted hook using useEffect. So whenever the component will mount, so this useEffect will run, and here I want to pass an empty array to tell that it should run only when the component mounts for the first time and not after that. So here when the component mounts for the first time, we want to load all the users. So first we have to import now from the fetch users from post actions. So what do you import? Go to post actions, check the file function name, it's fetch users from Redux post actions. Make sure the path is correct. If your code editor did not automatically put it, you have to put it properly, like going outside and getting the Redux, then post actions. So this function right here, we are now ready to dispatch inside useEffect. So you just have to call dispatch and then pass it the function, the action creator, this one, the Redux thunk. You have to pass here and just call it in this way. So dispatch here we can await, but we don't need await here. This will complete. Let it take its own time. So now after dispatching, we want to find out the users, right? We want to get the users that are stored. So whenever this is dispatched, here inside it we again dispatch the set post. Sorry, it's a big mistake. It should have been set users. So this one right here, set users. So this set users that we dispatch here, then it goes to reducer, post.reducer. So here in reducer, if you check set users, yes. So this action, set users, here we store the users right here and it updates the state. So this state value right here, if you want to access that from components, what you have to do is you have to use another hook called useSelector. useSelector. So with useSelector we can not fetch, but we can access the state property of the application of the store. So we say const users equals to, we have to do like this, useSelector, and here you have to select, let's go to store first. Here whatever the parameter, the first value is the store dot, let's go here, let's check, yes, it's the store. Then the first parameter is the post parameter. So store or state, whatever you want to tell it here. Let's say state. So in state we have the post here as a root reducer, so it will be post, and inside post the next parameter is users. So we want to get all the users in this way. So now these users will be stored here, and now if you console log after this, or if we await, we can also await here, then async and console log users, we should be able to see all the users after fetching them. Okay, so if you check now in the browser console and try to reload, you will find that the users is an empty array, because the problem is that it does not allow you to use async function directly inside useEffect like this. You can call it inside. So what I want to do, I simply want to remove the complexity of adding async and await, just remove it, and instead of console logging the value, I simply want to remove it, everything. I just want to dispatch fetch users, so which will update the state, and whenever the state is updated, I want just the user item to update as well. So what I will do, I will use mapping in React. Since you must be knowing, whenever you want to loop an array and create JSX components for each of the array items, you can loop them in map. using the map function. So what we do, we have this users array right here, which is a collection of users. So here we can say dot map, and whatever value we'll get here, say user, then we want to return this component and just close it up like this. So now let's try to reload and see if we have any change. Now what you will see though is you will find that there are 5 usernames. So now each of them will have some value, right? So to find out what, alright, they have this user, each of the users item, this user right here is actually a string. So what we want to do in user array, you can also verify that by going to post actions. So whenever this will be dispatched, so this action right here, whenever we fetch it, we can console log the users right here. So instead of console logging there, whenever this fetch users will be called, this console log will also run. So we can check what users value contains. So where did it go? It's an array of 5 elements. So you can see each element is a simple string. So this string value we want to pass it right here so that the names come up. So there is user container component, there is also user item component, as you might remember. So here we are directly sending username. What we want to do, we want to accept a prop, to accept props, and here instead of username we want to say props dot username, or we simply want to, okay, props dot username, let it be username. So this user item we will pass a prop now, say username equals to, it will have the value of the user. Now on saving it, you should see that we have the users called David, and this all the users that we were seeing in Postman right here whenever you fetch all the users. So this feature of loading all the users is done now. We have displayed in the component correctly. Now let's move on to the next feature of setting the active username. So whenever you click a user, this user should be set as active. Then for active users, we load the post, something like that. So first step is to load, make it active, set it active whenever we click them. Okay, so the reason that we need active username as a state that we want to maintain, because active username helps us to determine the post that we need to load. Alright, so whenever we click an user, we will set it as active. Then we will find that active username, whichever it is, and then we'll load all the posts. So it helps us first of all to highlight the user which is active, as well as in the second way it helps us to load all the posts of that active user. So it's a good way to maintain which user is currently active, so that we don't get confused later that which user is active or something like that. So over the entire application we maintain this state of active username. So now we will set the username as active when we click on it. So for that, since each of this component is a user item, so we have to do the work of setting active username inside this component itself, this user item component. So here we have to dispatch. If you go to post action, you can see that there is an action called set active username, which accepts the username and sets it active. As in the reducer, you can see the definition, which is set active username. It just updates the username with the payload, what we provide here, what we pass here. So in user item, we have to dispatch this action. So we have to import the action as well as the dispatch. So first, let me import use dispatch from React Redux, and also import the action that we want to dispatch. So the action name will be set active username, which we exported down here. So just import it also from. Now you have to go outside once, then go inside Redux, then inside post actions. So from there we import set active username also. So what we want to do, we want to set the active username on click of this div element. Okay, so here we have to add an event, say on click, and here we have to pass a function, say update active username. So this will be the function update active username, and I'll define the function right here, update active username. So this, not square brackets, so this function right here, we will dispatch this reducer action creator so that it can update the application state, so that it can update the store, in fact. So here use dispatch set active username, and here we have to pass the username. So the username is coming from this props, because each of this component has is receiving a username prop that we can access it like this, props.username. So pass the active username like that. So whenever we click, the active username will be updated this way. So now how do we know what is the active username? So we have to either console log here, set active username, or we have to update the state here in some way that it tells it's active. Say I put a text here that is active or not, depending it's yes, we have to add a check now. So we will say we have to first of all get the active username. So for that you have to again get useSelector. So useSelector is required to get the active username value. So here what we are doing is we are updating the value, but we don't know what is the current active username. Alright, so this function will run whenever we click on it, but we also need the value what the present active username is, so that we can determine whether to highlight it or not. So we will say const active username. So you will select like this. So in the same way how you used in user container, like this, use selector. Let me copy it up. Use selector. It selects a value from the store. So let's say this is the main state. Inside state we have post slice in reducer. Not in reducer. If you go to store, you can see this is the post property. Inside post property we have this state right here. Inside this state we can access the active username. So I'm copying it here, and instead of saying users, I'm saying active username. So this we are not using anywhere. So I want to just use here and say that, so it's a JavaScript expression. So if active username is equal to props.username. So if the username of this component matches with one of the with the active username, all right. Since there can be many, sorry, there is some error. Use dispatch is called in function. All right. This is a wrong thing. Use dispatch is a hook, and hook cannot be called inside functions. So first we have to call dispatch here. So this is a mistake. Dispatch. Yeah, this is correct. So what I want to tell is, so this is a component, so there are 5 components like this, but active username is only one. So if it matches with one of the names right here, so we will display an active text right there. So if it is true, then we will say render active, or otherwise we want to render nothing. So let's see if it works. If you click, it's active, but to give some spaces, I'll put this braces, parentheses. So when you click this, you see that we have the text updated, active, 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 like this. But now, in in the SCSS file, in main.scss file, which you must have downloaded when developing this application for designing, you will find that there should be an active class in the user. If you go to find users, let's search for it. User item, yes. Inside user item there should be a class called active. So if it is active, I have put a background color here, so we can add this class dynamically instead of adding this text dynamically as active, which does not look that much appealing. So what I want to do, I want to copy this up, and in class I want to dynamically create this. I want to use this template string syntax. So we will have this user item. Now we will have a dynamically added class name. So if it is active, we want to say, yeah, it should have the active class, or else it should have nothing. So I just want to remove this out. So now with this, dynamically we will add the class name called active if it's an active user. So now if you click, yes, that's very beautiful. If you have achieved that, very great. So we have updated the state of the active user, and now if it is active, it will retain the class name active, this one right here. So now we have done the work of setting the active username. What we need to do though is we need to load the post for the active username first, and then next we need to display the post right here. Storing post is also done, and now the second step will be to fetch the post for that active username. I mean, whenever the active username will update, by clicking here we have to fetch all the posts for that user. If we have no active username selected on the left container, then what we will see in the right container is this view right here with this kind of text, create or view status, with buttons to create and post image text. But if we have an active username selected by clicking it, then we will see this kind of right container layout where we'll have the post. If it is text post, then there will be text. If it is image, there will be an image here. Then there will be left and right arrows and also a delete button with this close button also to remove the active username. So we have to check in the right container component whether there is an active username or not, and accordingly we have to display this layout or this one. Okay, so come to your code and create two more components. One will be create status.jsx and another will be view status, view-status to JSX. So now here we'll set up the basic template using RFC shortcut, view status, and here just write a text, say view status. Now close this up, we'll update later, and in create status do the same. Just create the basic React template, then create status. Now what we'll do here is we'll go to right container, and whatever we have this part using create or view status, I'll copy it up to create status here. I just want to clean up by creating separate components. So here we have to import the fab component. We don't need it here anymore. Just import it here since it is in the same directory. So yeah, this create status is done. Now in right container we have to import both the components. So import create status from /create status right here and copy the same. It's similar. So view status, import the same view-status. Now here we have to display conditionally. So first of all we have to check whether there is an active username or not. So to check all of this we have to import useSelector to get the state from the Redux. useSelector from React Redux, and this patch, yes, this patch, let's see if we need it later. So for now we just need to toggle here depending on the active username. So to get the active username, what we need to do, say const active username. As we know that it's null if none of the user is selected as active, otherwise it contains the username value. So active username equals to useSelector. Now there you'll get a state, the first parameter. Then we need to select the value from the state. We need to select the state slice. So state dot, it'll be post, because if we go to store.js we can see that there is a post slice, post property. Inside post property we have the post reducer which contains the state for the post. So state the post dot, it will be active username. So if we go to .reducer, post.reducer, there we have active username property which you can access it here. So active username is right here, and in right container now we'll add a JSX expression. If active username is present, then we will view status, we'll run the view status component, otherwise we will say create status component. So now if we try to check, also ensure your server is running. My server is running right here, database, the backend and everything. So let me reload to ensure that everything is up to date. Now if I click, yes, we see that the view status component right here, I cannot cancel it anymore. Later I have to add the close button in view status which will remove the active username and set it to null. But if I reload, there is no active username since it's null, and we can see that this UI presents to us. So but if you click again, then we come back to view status component because we are toggling it right here. Now we have to do our major work in view status, and let's continue on that. So before we code the view actions, view status component, go to post actions first. So there we have some work. We have to do the work for fetching all the posts. So we need a Redux tongue for fetching all the posts for that active username. So let me just copy up the fetch users, and below that I'll put another function which will be called fetch posts. So here let me just minimize this. So in fetch posts, yeah, we get the same dispatch and get state, but here instead of exist.get users, it'll be the route what we have created. So if we go to Postman, if slash users will give you the list of all the usernames. Now if I say want to get the post of David, then get all posts, In gettable post, the URL is /post/username, and say the username is David. Yeah, it's capital D. Now if you send a request, you should see that the result is an array with a single item, with 2 items. So this URL right here, /post/username, we have to copy it and we have to make it same here in the code. So instead of /users, it will be /post, then /username. So username right here will come as a parameter here. We'll take a function parameter. So in /post, we'll just append it using the plus concatenation operator. So it'll get all the posts for the username, and then in rest data result, we will get our posts. So const post equals to this one, rest.data.result. And now what we need to do, this post right here, we just need to dispatch now. So we don't want to log out, but we just need to say set post. Since we already have a action creator here, set post right here. So just paste it, set post, and just pass the post array right here. So this is how we will fetch all the posts. Now you copy this and paste it right here. But we want to console log CLG to see whether it works or not. So we'll say posts. The posts are post right here. So this Redux thunk right here, we will dispatch from view status whenever any username change is detected, and accordingly this component will also update. So here I think in Redux actions we are done in fetching posts. So let's continue our work on view status. So let me import useSelector and useDispatch so that I can get the active username as well as useDispatch for fetching all the posts. So useSelector, then useDispatch from React Redux. So now let me say const dispatch equals to useDispatch for using dispatch later, and I want to get the active username here also. So useSelector state.post.activeUsername. Alright, my code editor auto detected what I required. That's good. You just type your state and state post active username to get the active username. Now I want to use useEffect hook in React. So for that I have to import useEffect. So useEffect we can run whenever for any site changes or whenever update occurs. Alright, so we want to run useEffect whenever there is any change in active username. So here whatever function we specify in this block, this will run if there is any change in active username. If the value changes here, then this useEffect will run. So in useEffect we just want to dispatch fetch posts. So if we want to dispatch fetch posts whenever there is change in username, this right here, so we have to import again. So import fetch posts from /redux/post.actions. So this fetch post action right here we have to dispatch, and also we have to pass the active username so that it can know which active username post we want to fetch from. Or either we can also do we can select the active username from the state itself using getState. I think we have never used getState right here. So you can either pass a username right here like this, active usernames, then it will receive the active username right here, and it will use this username like that. But I want to show the alternative way, so I don't want to pass this like that. So I don't want to pass any parameter at all to this function. What I want to do, I want to get the parameter of the username right here. So I will say const username equals to getState. So getState is a function. Whenever you call this getState, you will get the root state of the Redux application. So if you go to store, so this is the root state right here, this outer object. So inside this object you have a post property. So you have to say dot post, and then after post the next property is active username. So this is how you can get the state inline inside this function instead of passing it from outside. Since we are also selecting right here using state.post.activeUsername, but here for just for the purpose of detecting the update, I'm doing it right here. So we could have also done one more thing. Whenever active username changed here. We could have fetched the post right here itself, but let it be in the component. So whenever it will fetch all the posts, we will be able to see a log right here. The posts are whatever post array that we specify. So let's go to our browser and try to reload and open up our console side by side. So click F12, you will see console right here. Console, let me zoom in. And here, if I click one of the active username, you can see the posts are there is only one post right here. But if I click David, there must be two posts since we have tested. Yes, there is an array with two posts. If you open up, you see that these two posts are being displayed, right? So which is very much great. So what we can do now, we can select all the posts that are currently present and then pass it to some other component for displaying the post. So get all the posts for the active username. Since we know that the post property will only store the post for the active username, we simply need to select it. So copy up use selector, here state.post. It will be posts s right here. It's very similar. The outer property is post, and inside we have a post property, which is an array. So here we are storing it in post variable. Now what we need to do, we need to update the UI, right? In view status, if you go to the browser, we have not built any UI right here, but I have written all the SCSS styles in main.scss, which you have downloaded in the beginning of this front end work. So now we will be using some of the classes for this UI development. So I will say first you have to use class view status. Alright, so there will be a class called view status, but first of all I keep making one mistake, which I write class here. In React you have to write class name and not class, right? Because you're using JavaScript right here. This part is JavaScript and this is JSX. So in JavaScript, class is a reserved word and you cannot use the class keyword. So if I just type view status, let me see what we get. We simply get a black background because this is the default background. If you are showing an image in WhatsApp, you will find that the default background is black. So to match that, I have also given a black color. Now we need to add, let's start with the close button. Let's say there is a span and there will be a class name. We have to add a class name of close. If we go to main.scss, let me also open it up side by side. So there should be a class name of close inside view status. As you can see, there's a class name for view status. This is SCSS syntax. So inside view status we have close. So this span I want it to have close, and also it will contain a material icon. If it contains a material icon, you must have the class name material icons. So now inside span, the icon name for the material icons will be close. So let me see if I, yes, exactly, you will get this close button. Alright, this close already has a styling which I have applied. Now on hover it will be a little bit light gray, which is fine. Yes, also in close we have to add an action to clear the active username. So let's do it right now itself. So in class name, this close, whenever we click, we have to set the active username to null. So on click equals to a function will run, let's say an inline function. Since it's not going to be very long, we have to dispatch an action for clearing the username. So how do we do that? Let's go to post actions. There we will find set active username. We have to use this one. So this is not asynchronous, this is a synchronous action. We are exporting right here below. So we have to import here in fetch post, say set active username. So this action right here we have to dispatch to the store, set active username, and here the value for the username is expected. As you can see here, active username, it will be null, which will be the default value. So let's see on closing this. Yes, we come back here because active username is null, and now in write container we have a check. As you know that if it is a null, then we go to the create status. If it has some value, we go to the view status component. So since it has no more value, we come back here. Now when we click again some status, we see that this UI is being displayed. When I close, it's gone. So now I will need to also add a delete button, but I'm thinking to do that later. What we need to do now is to display the post actually, and use arrow buttons to move from one post to another post. So let's get into that. Okay, so to display the post, I want to create separate component. So this component right there, view status, I just want it to do the work of managing which post is active, or whether the post is deleted or not, or whether we need to close this post or not. But the actual post right here, if you see here, hello world, and this blue background, or if it's an image, then it'll show an image. But these outer icons right here, like left arrow, right arrow, this delete, close, all this work of managing will be done by view status. But the displaying of the post and the UI, this actual post, hello world, these colors, all will be maintained in a separate component. So you'll know what I mean right now. Let's create another component for that, which will be calling, say, status post.jsx. Sorry, the name is wrong. Status post.jsx, and here let me minimize it up, and here just run the React RFC, React functional component status post, and here we'll say status post to see whether the component is working or not. In view status, we have to import this, so import status post from /status post. In status post, you can go down here, let's say just say status post. So here we'll pass down the post that we need to display. Now let me reload it. So status post, you can see here a little bit light gray color, since totally everything is black. Status post is light gray color, and here this will contain only one single post out of the multiple of posts. Alright, we have multiple posts, that's why we have right arrow and left arrow to switch from one post to another, right, for that user. But this status post component will contain only one post. It will be only concerned with the logic for displaying a particular post. So we have to pass down only one single post here. Say post equals to, that will be the post prop. I will say post, let's say 0. I'll just pass down the first property of the post. Now this will throw an error if post is empty, right? So we have to add one more condition, say post.length, and like that. So if post.length is present, so if it is not of 0 length, then we can run this. Why is it double? Let me save it up. Now in status post, we have to do the work of displaying and all the UI work. So let's do it now. So in status post component, we will receive a prop here. Let's say props, and here we'll get the post. Whatever post that we passed it right here, say post, we are just passing the first post right now. Later we will pass whichever index is active. Using these toggle buttons, we will store the state. So right now, whatever post that we're passing, we can say props dot post. Oh my gosh, it's so much typo. Okay, post is props dot post. Now I want to put a condition, if by chance we have no post, then I just want to return an empty fragment. This is a React fragment. So if it is not post, then we'll return this, otherwise this part will run, which will return the normal post right here. So here in status post, I have a class name right here, status post, yes. So this class name you have to use, which will arrange the layout properly. Class name equals to status post, put the class name status post, and here let me just type anything silly, and let me go to the Chrome browser. Alright, so it's still the same like before. If you click this, alright, just the text is being displayed, but this class name right here does a little bit background layout work. So something like it fills the width and height properly of the view status parent component. So yeah, for later purpose we'll see the effect. But now we have to detect what type of post it is. So if it is type of post text, now we have to use the background color, what we did when we created the post. So when you create a post, you can set your background color like red, light green, right? So whatever background color is there for this text post, we have to display it right here. So I have to check if post.type is equal to text. If post.type equals to text, then we have to put the background color and this post type text UI right here. Otherwise, if it is image, it will be right here. So here what we'll do, we'll create few more elements right here, div elements, since div elements are container elements and are very common. So here in div element, we have to add one more class name, text post, I suppose. Yes, inside status post, it can be either text post or image post. So the first one will be text post, and let me copy it up exactly. For the second one, it will be image post. Just we don't have content, but we have the layouts right now. So first one is text post. In text post, I just want to display the post.text. So if I check, yes, you can see that it's vertically centered and also horizontally centered, and its size is larger. Now its background color for the text post, whatever text post we have right here, the first post for them, since we are passing the 0 index of this post array. So this here we have to add the style for the background color dynamically. We cannot do through class name, because color can be various colors, right? 5 or 6 or many. I don't want to create class names, so many for them. So what I'll say, style equals to, here you have to pass a style object. In React you can create style names, this property CSS names, using camel case, and here the background color will be exactly the same as the post color, which will be post.background color. So if you say, sorry, as you know, post has a property background color. If you check in the console where you're displaying the post, whenever you click the array of posts are this, since if it is text color, then you have a background color property. So this background color property contains the CSS color name, yellow, red, blue, whatever it is. So we can specify it right here, post.background color. Now if you go to the text, and you can see amazing, the color has been updated and it's not black anymore. So this is green, this is yellow. Let me see if I have some other color. This is okay, this is an image post, that's why it's displaying black. Alright, these two are image post. So for image post we have not added condition, but for post text our UI is done, I have to say. Now for image post, let's continue with it. Now first, just remove this dummy text right here which I have put. Now in image post we have to use an image element to display the image. So src. So in src right here we will have an image URL. So post.image URL, I suppose that's the property, and also we'll have image caption. So, but still, to make it sure, let's go back to our console in the browser, and let's try to click this John, I think, since it displays black. So it's not a text post, of course. The first one is an image post, and here you have an image URL right here. So here you need to paste an image URL. So as you know, whenever we create an image, this image URL right here, we need to copy some image URL, say from some other website. We can copy it, then paste it here. So this image URL property, we have to use as the link for this image. So we have to say post.image URL. Since the post type is not text, this is an image, of course. And here in all images, if it's unable to load the image, we should display an alt text. It's a good habit to do so whenever you build or use this image tag. So as an alternative text, we want to use image caption, which you have right here. We can specify image caption. So I'll say post.image caption. Is it image caption? Yes, post.image caption. Now here I also want to display the caption in another div element, which will be visible even if the image is loading, right? All this for the part if the image is not loading, but this one right here, we always want a caption right here. So post.image caption, as you can see in WhatsApp statuses, you can add a caption below the image, down the image. So this is what we are doing. And now all the styling, we don't have to add any classes right here, because it will detect whether it's an image or div element, and based on that it will add the classes. As you can see inside image post, we have styling for image element and as well as for div element, so we don't have to add any more classes. So what I want to do, I just want to reload and click. You can see that the caption is here, my image, and this, but we cannot see the image right here because the image URLs are wrong exactly. So what I want to do, I want to create an image post. I want to go to Google, and here I want to search images, say scenery. If I say scenery and I zoom it up, I want to go to images, and I just want to copy one of the URLs right here, say this this image. Alright, this image right here. Click on this image, let it load. It's a very huge size, I guess. Right click, and then just you have to say copy link, copy image address. Now in image address, you paste it right here. Say, let the username be a new one. Say new image user. And in image caption, my beautiful scenery, and just click save. But you can see that whenever we save the post, we are not refetching the users. This one we have to do later. We have to reload now. You will see new image user. Whenever you click, you can see a very beautiful scenery centered right here, because this is the only first post. So whenever it's an image, it'll come here. You don't have to worry that all the stylings are in place. So now I think we are done with the styling for the status post. What we need to do though is we need the feature to toggle and move through one post to another post using arrow buttons, which will be done in view status right here, and we will pass that particular post with using a state for active index. So let's continue with that. So first I just want to build the UI for the buttons. So let me go to Chrome. So here I just want to add the arrow icons. So let's do that. So here I want to display the arrows. I don't want to directly display the arrows if it has only one post. If it has more than one post, only then we will display these arrow buttons. So I have to detect here if post.length is greater than 1, alright? So it has to be 2 or 3, whatever it is. So if it is greater than 1, only then I will display. Let me group up. Now here we will have left arrow as well as the right arrow. So both of them cannot be as root elements. So we have to wrap them up inside one more, say dummy element React fragment. So I'm doing this. Now inside this we'll create span elements. Span elements. So each of the icon will have class name of material icons, because I'll be using icons for left and right. So all class names, wherever you use material icons, will have material icons class name right here. And then here also additionally you have to add, let's say first it is that chevron left. It will be chevron left, alright, chevron left, and for the right one it will be chevron right, material icon. Just save it and check whether it's displayed or not. For a post having more than one, let's see, yeah, we can see that the icons are right here, but they are not positioned correctly because we have not used the styles that I have created in main.scss. So here are the styles for arrow left and arrow right, and also we have individual styling. So let's use them. Go to status post and add class, sorry, go to view status, and here add class for arrow left, AROW left, arrow right. Just save it, and you can see beautifully the styles are applied. It feels like magic because the styles are already in place. So alright, with this we cannot toggle right now since there is no logic for us, but image is this one. Okay, this also has more than one post, that's why these arrows are appearing, but all of these don't have more than one post. So now what I want to do though is I want to add logic for storing the index. Right now we are statically passing the 0 index. So to store the index we have to create another state. So say const active post index equals to use state. Alright, so the state will be 0 in the beginning. Now first of all also we have to import the use state since you're using it. So here we will get a pair, not only active post index, we'll get also set active post index. Set active post index. Let me right now pass the active post index since it's 0. Alright, so we are passing the active post index. Now whenever we click this left icon, we have to subtract the active post index by 1. When we click the right one, this right chevron arrow, then we have to add the active post index by 1. Right now it's working as default since it's 0. So now let's say we have a function. I want to create a new function called update post index. So const update post index, because I have few more conditions. So say update index equals to, we'll get the index right here. Now we should not be able to subtract the index if it is already 0, right? So this condition will add here. So if this index, whatever we pass here, if index is less than 0, alright, if index is less than 0, example here in onClick we'll pass active post index -1. So if it was already 0, then 0 minus 1 will be -1. So if it is less than 0, which means -1, or whatever it is, then we want the index to be post.length -1. So we want it to loop actually. So if I click, if I'm already at the first post, and if I click this left icon, then it will loop from the last one. Alright? Or in the same way, I also want to add the logic that if I'm at the last post and I click this, then I will loop from the first one, right? So else, for the second one, else if index is greater, alright, or equals to the post.length. So you have to a little bit think for this condition. Let me just remove this. Yeah, if its index is equal or greater to the post.length, alright, so if it reaches that value, I want index to come back from 0, right? Now whatever index is right here, now we want to update here. We don't want to directly update the post index. We want to first let it pass through the conditions right here and then update the active post index. So now here we have to add. This will do nothing since we are not calling the function update index. So we have to call the update index on click. On click equals to on click I want to run an inline function, so this right here. So here I will say update index, whatever index we have right here, active post index, which is the state. I just want to pass -1. We are not updating the index directly right here, we're just passing the value, and based on this value in this update index function, we will determine whether to update, what value to update in fact. So update index right here, and the same thing we have to copy it down, update index, but here instead of minus it will be plus. And for this function, you pause this video and take a look how it works. Now let me show the demo. So whenever we click next, yes, we can see hello world to David, and it recycles back to the first one. Now this is the first one. When I click left, it comes back to this. And since you know we are passing the active post index right here, the active post, and this status post will just do the work of displaying the UI, the presentation part. So now whenever I go here, I think there is some error right here. Yeah, this is red, this is image. Alright, so there's a text post, but for this, yeah, this is we're loading now. It wasn't loading, I think there was some error. Oh, alright, I got it. So whenever we are in the first post and we click the second post, but this second post right here doesn't exist for this element, so whenever active username changes, we also have to update the active post index to 0. We have to reset the active post index. So here whenever we fetch all the posts, we have to also set the active post index to 0 whenever we toggle and change the usernames. So whenever I click second username and come back, we'll have the first username. So it's working. So this has only one, this has, okay, this has no image. So but it has post text, which is like that. So it feels like WhatsApp right now, and I'm very happy to see that. So what I want to do next is we have to add the delete logic, right? So we right now don't have any delete post, so we should be able to remove the post, otherwise it may keep on growing and growing. So right now I just want to add the inline button, delete button, and then add function on that. But in WhatsApp, each of the user will have accounts, authentication, all this we don't want to deal, it will be very difficult. So let's do with the last work of adding the delete feature. So just down below this arrow icons, we have to add the delete button. I have already added the styling for all of this. So since it contains an icon, I will use the span element, and it will use material icons. So I have to add class name for material icons right here. And now let me say just delete, because the icon name is delete. So you must know how to use material icons. And as far as I remember, I think I have told the guide how to use them. So go back to Chrome browser and you can see a delete button right here. Now its style is not up to the mark because we have not added this inbuilt styling which I have provided. So add a class name with delete, and then there will also be styling for hover. So So all of this will come whenever we add one more class name, say delete, and save it up. And you can see a beautiful button right here circled on the right. So now we have to add the feature for delete. All of the posts right here will have a delete button. So on click, we have to add one more action in post action. I think we have not created the action for delete. So there will be a delete post action which we have to code, and here we have to dispatch on click. So just like fetch post, create another function called const delete post. Delete post equals to a redux tongue async. It'll get dispatch and get state. It's a redux tongue. It's an asynchronous function. So in delete post, we'll get the post to delete. So we need to get the post to delete. And now let's first go to Postman to first clarify how delete works. Let me open up Postman. It's right here, Postman. So here we have get all posts for a user. So I think for delete post we need the user ID. So let me copy up this ID. Now you can see that David has currently 2 posts. If we go to delete post tab and pass the ID right here as a parameter in this path variables and send a request, you should see some response, post deleted successfully, and also the deleted post will come right here. So now if I go to get all posts and send another request, you can see that there is only one element right here, only one item, array item. So in delete post we have to send the post ID. So that's confirmed now. And this is the URL right here, /post/delete, but the method right here is not post, but it's a delete method. So what we need to do, say we'll get whatever response, then await Axios dot, not get, it's delete, Axios.get delete, and the URL will be /post / the ID of the post that we want to delete. So ID of the post will be in post._id and not post.id, because in property for a post, if you go to get all posts, you'll see that each of the posts has a property called _id, which contains the MongoDB object ID. Alright, so this ID we have to delete, and since we are using await, whenever this will complete, the next statement will run. So we have to refetch all the posts. Alright, we want to refetch all the posts. We don't want the previous post to be lurking around. Alright, so we have to say await dispatch. So whenever we delete the post, we will refetch the post, whether 2 posts or 3 posts. So we'll dispatch again fetch post right here. Alright, we are dispatching 2 times. Inside this, again we are dispatching this fetch post. Inside this fetch post we have set post. So we can also dispatch redux tongue, that's clear from here. So now what we want to do is we want to test first whether it works or not. So let me go to the end and just export it as delete post. So now you need to go to view status. Here you need to import the action first before using it. Just say delete post, and here we want to run delete post in this function right here. So on click equals to an inline function. So we just want to say dispatch delete post, and here I just want to pass the post that we want to delete. Now how do we get the post, active post we want to delete? It's using just this same syntax right here. So post active index. So this will be the current post which we are right now. So if you go to Chrome, so this is the active post, and this active post we are referring to whenever we click the delete button. So in David we have only 1 post now. Let's see where we have 2 posts. In John you have this image right here which is not working, and you have 1 text post. So what I want to do is I want to delete this image post right here. Alright, since this is also not working, and also the type of post does not matter whenever you're deleting, only we need to pass the post ID, which we are already doing it. Let's go here, post ID, yeah. We are just passing the post, and it will be received and read from delete post. So let's just try out what happens, and I click the delete button, go. You see that we have another post right now. Alright, the next post appears up whenever we delete the previous post. So you can see, yeah, everything is fine. So whenever you delete the post, the length of the post decreases by 1. Alright, so if your active post was active post index, So if your active post index was 2, say number 2, if this active post index was 2, then and you have number of posts say 3, then the number of posts will reduce to 2 after you delete a particular post. So the next post right here will become the active post. Alright, so that's the thing to remember. And if you delete the last post, we have to experiment that. So let's create all these test conditions, and we will be adding more posts now to test just that. So there are two cases possible. The first case is whenever we are deleting the first only single post. So if this is the only post that a user has and not 2 or more posts, if there's 2 posts or more, there will be arrows. So if this is the only post if the user has, and if we delete it, we have to find out what happens. And also the another condition will be if it is the last post, if it is the post for the last index and we delete that, we also need to find out what happens in that case also, right? So now we'll check for the only post. So for David, we have only one single post, and let's click the delete button. You can see just empty with a 0 icon right here because there are no more posts now. And this 0 is appearing because I think we are displaying using post.length. So React tells that if the value is renderable, say post.length is 0, then it will render this value also, even if the condition is not true. If it is true, then it will run the next condition. But if it's not true and this is renderable, it will render this 0 value. So yeah, so this has no more posts, it's displaying 0. What I need to do whenever we click delete, we have to remove this user actually, and we also have to set the active user to null. Alright, so this user right here, when we delete this button and we have only one single post, it should be the same action as clicking the close button, as well as it should remove the user. So in post actions, in delete post, we have to determine after dispatching the fetch post, after getting all of them and awaiting it, we have to find out how many posts do we have right now. So for that, let's get all the posts. Say get state dot, in post property we have the post. So all the posts, if post.length now is 0 for the current active user, since you know that fetch post will fetch all the posts for the active user, we have not touched active username and done anything with it. So if active username posts are 0, we just need to set active username to null now. So this is the condition for deleting when user had only one post. So if user have only one post, so this will be the condition. And also on top of that, we have to fetch all the users, alright, to remove this particular user. Active username is not defined, so active username, yeah, it's set active username, sorry. Yeah, so now, alright, on reloading it removed that, but on clicking this, since this has only one post and we click delete, it has removed the highlight for the active username since the length was 0, but this username is still right there, but it has no post. So we also want to refetch all the users, since you know fetch users will only return those users which have post. So you have to await dispatch. You have to again say fetch users to dispatch this function right here, fetch users. So it'll refetch the users now. So let me reload. Yeah. So this one right here, it has also only one post. If I click delete button, it will fetch all the users again newly. So now we see that it's working. Now we have to add a few more posts to find out what happens when we delete the last post in a row of multiple posts. So go to create a text post or whatever it is with the same username, say John, and another post. Say color will be light, say orange. I've not used that. On saving post, yes, we have another post right here on saving the post. So we'll add more posts right here. Say with the same username, third post. Let it be yellow itself. When you click John again, you'll find this is first post, this is second post, and this is the third post, right? So we are moving through one post to another. Now after third post, you come back to the first post. So now what happens when we delete the last post? So when we click the last button, we see that it's empty, right? So what we need to do is we need to move to the previous post. Whenever we delete the last post, we need to move back the active index by 1 so that it comes back to the previous post. So we have to go, alright, so if it was deleting the last post, here we have to add the condition to check if this was the last post, and based on that we have to move it back. Alright, so let's start with the condition. First I want to make it asynchronous, and I want to await it, so that after delete I hope that we will have the post, the updated post property. So post.length must be greater than 1 first of all. Otherwise, if we have only one post, and then we want to delete it, we don't want to apply that condition because we already have condition for that in post.actions. If we have only one post and we delete it, post length becomes 0, we remove the user here. It must be greater than 1 to become the last post, and also one more condition is that the post.length must be equal to active post index to reduce the index by 1, because if we had the active index say 3, if our active index was say 3 and the number of posts were 4, 3 means the last post because in array index moves from 0 till the last, the array length minus 1. So if we had the active index as 3 and the number of posts as 4 and we deleted the last post, now the post length will become 3 and the active index will also become 3. So both will become equal in that case, and so at that case we have to update the index. So we have to use this function right here, update index, and then pass active post index minus 1, and I hope that this works. If it doesn't work, we have to add some other condition. So now here we have the second post right here. I want to add one more post actually to John. So click the pencil icon. So third post, so post text, oh sorry, this was third post, the username is John, and let it be yellow as before. So this is the third post. Whenever I click this, it must come to the second post, but it still doesn't come. So we have to figure out and do some debugging. Alright, so the issue was that it was very silly issue. So the thing was that whenever we deleted the post property may or may not update after this await. So it may also contain the previous value, so it was sometimes updating and sometimes it was not. So what I want to do, I want to completely remove this up, and I just want to check if post length was greater than 1, alright, previous or whatever it is. Then we will simply update the index and we'll subtract it by 1. So now here we have only single post, so I'm adding test, sorry, this should be the username, say yellow. I'll add one more for John, so another post with color, say sky blue, and save it up. So now you have 1, 2, and 3 posts. So if we delete this last post, we can see this, and if it is not the last post, well, I think there will be some issue. Let me add one more post. So, third post again with light green color. So now we have to check what happens if we delete the middle post. This is third post. Alright, so I think this yellow was this was the first, this is second, this is middle. It's very confusing now. So let's say we delete this green color. Alright, green color is the last one. This yellow color right here is the middle post, and when we click delete, we come back to the first one. Alright, so I think that will also work, but still you can put a condition that the next one should come if you delete it. But here in our case, it will always come back to the previous post if you delete it. But if you delete with only one post, it will always remove that user. Now the only thing left is this, if we create a post with another user, say another user, and say my post, and then with yellow color, and you save it, you can see that it's not displayed. It will only come whenever you click the reload button. So because we are not refetching whenever we create a post, so simply go to post actions. This is an easy fix. So in create post, you don't need anything created post or something like that. You just need to dispatch all the users again using fetch users whenever you create a post. So let me reload to confirm whether it's updated or not. And whenever I create a post with new user and with a post with a color say red and save, we can see the user being appended at the end of the array. And now this is a post, and whenever we create a post with the same user, new user, so right here, and my post 2 with yellow color, save it, it'll come as a loop right here, my post 2, and it'll loop again from the back. Whenever I delete the first post, there should be okay. So that's what we have got it. We have to fix it right now. It's a big issue because whenever we delete the first post, we are having issues right now because of this condition. So if post length was greater than 1, we have to add post active post index, the previous active post index. So this one right here. The previous active post index was not equal to 0. So only then we are moving backwards by one step. So this one post right here, I'll post one more again for new user. So new user, my post 2. Whenever I create sky blue, save it. This is first, this is sky blue is second one. So this is first post. So whenever I click delete, it'll move to the second one, since it was not the first post. So with this, I think it's done completely. Let us test one more last time for the image. Let's create one more, select one more scenery. So this scenery right here, let it load, and just click copy image address, not copy link address. In image address, you'll get the image address, and here say coconuts, the username. So caption coconut scenery, and just click save button. So this is the user with this text image post, and for the same username, if I create another test post, then you can see this one right here, it toggles it like that. If we create one more user image, it should work. Let's say this scenery right here, copy image address here, my caption, whatever it is, just save it up. Coconut, this is first image, this is background, that's fine. Let's delete this text post. We have 2 image posts. Let's delete this also. We have only 1 image post. Let's delete this also, and we have no more user. So with this, we have completed our WhatsApp status, and congratulations very much on sticking till this end. If you were there doing all the part, right, from Postman, from Compass, MongoDB, right, and whether you know or not, I don't know, there is MongoDB Compass where you can graphically view the data, which we have not used in this application. We have used only Postman, and it was enough. And we have made all the basic features of WhatsApp status, of creating, deleting, closing, and this sums up the entire application. And with this, let's end up right here. Alright, so thank you for watching this video. If you want to compare the code for this video, I have uploaded it to GitHub, so you can check in the video description below and compare the code if it is not working. Or if it is working, then congratulations for doing it till the end. You should be having the complete application that works like this, everything properly. Alright, so this was made with MERN Stack, touching all different technologies, and it's not possible to explain each and everything. So also, if I do any mistake, please pardon me for that. And now I want to end up this video by telling you to like, comment and subscribe if you like the channel, because I will be creating more videos with vanilla JavaScript projects, right, and also MERN Stack projects, of course. And comment down below what you think about this is. And alright, see you, bye bye, and in the next video.